We are zooming through our day here as our next matchup is over the horizon, or on the horizon, or right here on the shores of the beach. It's upon us, is my point. The first
the horizon's getting awfully close, man.
It's getting real close, and it's here. Leviathans versus Oni Warriors up next here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League, powered by our friends over at Alienware. And the good news is, if you want to be a pro SMITE player one day, all you need is some Alienware gear. Not true, but you do need some Alienware gear anyway because it's the top-of-the-line stuff. You can go on over to SMITEGame.com/Alienware and use code AWSMITE09 for discounts on select Alienware gear. Good enough for us here in production, good enough for our players and their streaming and gaming setups at home. So make sure to grab yourself some, and thanks again to Alienware for being with us here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. And as the horizon approaches us, so will my friend here on the desk. Gormizer was not only with me on the cast, but now with me on the desk. And Gore, after a long week of SEC, a bunch of 2-1 sets.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I'm not sure I expected our first the other day to be a 2-0. Figured a little more pushback.
You say a long week. It's been there was one day of SEC. Do you remember that? It was just the one. It was a very long day, so I can imagine.
See how much light is in my eyes?
But yeah, no, it was a little surprising, right? And I think it goes to showcase, especially here in the regular season. I think the last time it happened, I remember it was maybe Sot had tweeted out that he lost to the Kings of the regular season, which is that they're just very strong. And this is the second time it's been a 2-0. The Kings have a good grip right now on the phase. And so I think that they're putting themselves in a fantastic position as we kind of get towards the latter half of this portion of the year.
Yep.
And of course get towards, as we're looking at, another like Summer Masters at the end of this phase, a big LAN event, being up towards the top is always going to have its benefits.
Atlantis Leviathans and Oni Warriors score. That'll be our next matchup after a great way to start off the week. A couple close-knit matches moving forward this weekend as well. Double headers for both the Valkyries and the Scarabs, so high expectations for those teams to show us some improvement moving forward to the second half of the phase. And why is that, Dave? Because schedules are getting very important. Standings getting very important. And as close-knit as it was over in Phase 1 remains the same here. That said, Gore, with how close Phase 1 was, it was only the 4-week period, teams all within like 1 or 2 wins of one another. We could see larger separations as this phase goes on just because there are twice as many games. And right now, the Camelot Kings have separated themselves, right? The only team at 7 wins, the only team within a couple of wins of them is at 5 wins.
Yep. And
so those types of things start to add up. It's really a battle for the middle of the pack right now because the Kings stand alone up top, Valkyries and Scarabs keeping pace with the bottom of the middle. And so a lot of changing around to be done standings-wise. Very excited to see how all that breaks down. Now the Leviathans, the undefeated killers of just a couple of weeks ago, now want to actually start to build on that, keep pace with the top of the league, because the Leviathans in Phase 1 did not play their best SMITE, starting to play some of their best SMITE, though, over the last couple of weeks. And with that, Panitom, the jungler for this team, has really started to step up, Gormizer, because, as always, jungle so important for setting pace, keeping pace. And Panitom in the last couple of games, remember, it is important to rewind, though, Gore.
Be kind, rewind.
Be kind, rewind. The Leviathans, after beating the undefeated teams in the league, then come out last week and wasn't the most convincing performance from the squad. Remember, they dropped 2-1 to the Solar Scarabs, and ended up being a really nice look for the Scarabs last week. And so building, turning things around now, starting to build on that up against the Oni Warriors, a very formidable opponent, important for this Leviathans
Well,
team.
and this becomes even more complicated, right? When you look at it, the Warriors, this squad, the matchup that they had last time they met in Phase 2, it was a 2-0, very simply put, for the Leviathans, so they were able to find the win here. And the Warriors have only ever been able to beat the Leviathans once in their 6 matchups across the last couple of years, and that was earlier this year, Phase 1, Week 1, at the very beginning they come out. It was maybe the biggest surprise. But when you looked at the standings, both of these teams are 4-3, and like you said, Panitom plays a huge aspect in the 4s for the Leviathans and in the 3 for the Leviathans, right? There are games where Panitom comes in, you see that 2.74 KDA, you know they're getting involved and they're finding a lot of kills, but at the same time, when things aren't looking great for the Leviathans, you feel it everywhere, but you might feel it the most in the jungle, right? Where you're looking for plays to happen and they're just not there. You're looking for something to kind of come to fruition for the team, and Panitom just isn't quite able to hit the way that you would have wanted. So I think that the transition that we've seen from them week 1 of this phase, the Warriors losing 2-0 to the Leviathans is a big deal because the Leviathans were still kind of looking for that meta, looking for what they were, and using things, the Nemesis not too uncommon for Panitom, the Mercury not uncommon. But now they've shifted and they've gotten a better grip.
And Gore, when you consider the jungle matchup, this actually becomes very, very interesting because QvoFred on the flip side for the Oni Warriors, I would argue maybe has had a similar phase to Panitom. There are games where QvoFred has just popped off. The Achilles jungle has looked great, looked good for the Oni Warriors as far as KDA goes. QvoFred has shown us some of the best and some of the quietest performances from the jungle we've seen maybe this phase. A couple 3-0 games in the last few matchups, and then a 1-3, and then a 5-4, and then a 4-6. And so it's building consistency not only as a team, but for QvoFred specifically, who seemingly has found his home with some of these more unique warrior jungles, specifically the Achilles, to match up well with Panitom today. And I'm really excited to see which jungler is going to win the day.
Yeah, I think the big difference, Panitom gets excited. Qvo lives through, energy just spreads through the team when Qvo has a good game. And that's kind of what you come to expect. If Qvo is popping off, if Qvo's having good moments, then guaranteed everyone on the team's going to be feeling. Even if they're not having a great game, right? Vote might be like 0-4, but if Qvo's 5-0, then you're still feeling that surge of energy throughout the booth. And I think that's such a huge play style for them. Like you said, it's been very interesting watching over Qvo because it has been very hit or miss. It's how it was a little bit last year and the year before. And a lot of the regular season was misses, right? You talk about hit or miss for them. Season 7, a lot of misses. Season 8, a little less misses, but still more of them happening. And now it's been a lot more consistent. I mean, this is a team that was 6th place over the last 2 years, or at least for Qvo, a guy that has been 6th place for every single time. And now he's finally being able to claw out of that. This Oni Warriors squad has really been able to claw their way forward. And I'm excited to see what they do here because this is one that I still think, even though it went 2-0 earlier this phase, it's a coin flip. It can go either way.
Well, that's the important thing, Gore, is it's been a few weeks. Teams have grown. Teams have changed. How have these teams grown? How have these teams changed? Luckily, we were able to sit down with a member of both teams and hear how each other and how themselves have changed since the beginning of phase number 2.
Last time we played Leviathans, we lost 2-0, I'm pretty sure. Since then, obviously, we were in like the hunter solo meta. Everyone was kind of confused at the start of the phase. I think since then, obviously, a lot's changed. Just picks-wise, and then as a team, we've gone through like a lot of shifts and like kind of identity changes since then. So yeah, it should be a new look compared to back then for sure.
I think the last time we played them, I think we won against them. We won 2-0, and I think the last time before that we won 2. So I think it was like really long time ago that we lose against them. So yeah, we lose against them in phase 1, if I'm not mistaken. Like with every team, we just talk about what happened and we just try to do things better.
I'd say Leviathans have since then gone back to the more traditional style we've seen from them before, like picks-wise. Stuff like Erlang, Shen in jungle, and then Artio's back in solo, so that's always a big pick for them. We have seen like Zap play mage ADCs as well, which is something we'll have to look out for sure.
I think they do. I think they're a team that are playing really, really well now. They are playing better than before, and I think they're a team that are constantly improving, and that's a really good team. A good thing because every time you play against them, you're gonna feel that it's gonna be harder and harder, and that's way, way, way better to play against.
I think now the meta has solidified, I'd say, yeah. We're seeing mainly like Guardian solos to like kind of run the lane, and then, some flex between like hunters in mid or ADC, and then mages also flexing both sides with warrior jungles mainly too.
I think right now, yeah, everyone have like kind of an idea of what is going on. I think everything also has like their preference, like why they want to play and how. But yeah, I think that the meta right now is like settled.
So both of the Oni Warriors and the Leviathans teams feeling like the meta has solidified and identities have been found. And for these two teams, Gore, feeling like an okay thing because both teams have had their moments. Both teams have started to build their momentum. And remember, like mid-season, it's super important, like now, right, to work on what your team identity for the rest of the year is, right? Your stakes right now are masters and those types of things. Later in the year, the stakes get all so much higher. So feeling like you've got your identity sort of figured out and able to iron that out, I think a great look for both teams.
I'm keeping my eye on the bans though right now. I think that, and more specifically, this needs to be an Ullr from the Warriors. You know, top 3, you can see them down there in the bottom left. The Yamoja is the most banned, but Chernobog, Ullr tied as banned gods up against the Leviathans. They've gone for Ullr 5 times from first pick. They've won with him 5 times from first pick. They've got 8 wins from first pick in general of their 11 times here. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a little flabbergasted that they've left it behind because it's been treating them so well out of mid.
Now remember, this Eset, not a mid pick, typically for the Leviathans, typically a Zapman pick. Something Zap played a few times in a row. A couple of wins up against, 1 win against the Valkyries, 1 win against the Kings on this Eset. Leaving Sheento to play something a bit different. Could be that, could be Sheento on Eset mid, TBD, but if history tells us anything, Zapman likes the just not even mage ADCs, just straight up mage over in the dual lane. Xing Chen and Osiris end up being the picks. Now Gore, Xing Chen, first overall pick for the Oni Warriors here, admittedly surprising. You'd think you might want to grab something that's at risk of getting pick banned away. The alternative thought process is we don't want to reveal too much, and what we are going to pick, either we have alternatives for or are not worried about getting picked or banned. Because Xing Chen, you know, it's support.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting. You're not revealing too much about your team.
You want me to make it even weirder for you?
Please do.
This is the first time this phase they play Xing Chen, so it's not even like okay, yeah, let's like we're getting forced onto it, and the bans have just taken it away. They have slowly kind of risen to this, and I think it has a lot to do with what's been successful on the other side, and a lot of what you're seeing right there, kind of a preemptive pick and ban win, I would argue, for the Warriors. Getting the Xing Chen, Furious Roar, I always talk about it, one of my favorite things against auto attackers, Erlang, Shen, and Ullr, when this Guardian is nearby, are going to be dealing less basic attack damage. That's going to give them a little bit more of an option. Side note, it is just 100% win rate for the Ullr so far for the Leviathan, so I think the Xing Chen, while giving a little bit of an edge, still comes with a little bit of a wary nature, knowing that they haven't touched it. Neil, I mean, he's played Xing. Like, you don't need to doubt him in any regards there. But I do think that the Leviathans get a very stellar top 3 that's really strong for them. The Warriors, especially with the Osiris, the Daji, are going to have to go big.
Wow, Neil, I didn't realize this. Neil has played 4 Ganesh games in a row. 2 wins against the Dragons, 2 losses against the Kings. And so it'll be something a little bit different for NeilMah here in this game on the Xing Chen. Daji, I think that one, Gore, might be the most important pick of the draft so far. You can make an argument for the Ullr and the Leviathans and how strong that has been for Sheento and how the Leviathans get the Ullr anyway. But I think specifically for QvoFred as a pace setter here in this set, when you look at him on something like the Daji versus him on something a bit slower paced, I think I can tell a world of difference. So I love the Daji pick here for the Oni Warriors. But Gore, do you love the Hera pick here for the Oni Warriors? Because it's something we've seen for this squad. And remember when they were playing online, it's where Dardez found some consistency. But the last time we saw it, it was just last week in a loss to the Kings.
Well, I will say, though, career-wise, 62% win rate on this god. If there's anybody that I'm going to trust playing the Hera,
of course,
it is just going to be Dardez. In fact, I'm not sure that like there's anybody else.
It's going to be me.
It's absolutely. It's going to be you. We're putting you out in the Pro League right now.
That's what I was going for there. Appreciate
Oh, you were going for some NSYNC?
Some NSYNC, yep. We were not in sync.
No, not at all. That's a May time song. Like that song plays for 3 days before May and 2 days after May starts, and then it's gone forever.
Got it, so the literal use of that song is off the table.
Yeah, no, it's gone now. It's only for the memes, man.
It's only for the memes. Sorry, Gore.
Unless it comes up in Katie's shuffle playlist, which it does.
It does.
And usually I listen to the first minutes, hear that it's going to be me, and then I skip it.
And then you skip it. I did cut you
Backstreet
off,
Boys
though.
are better, by the way. Just like throwing that out there.
You're opening up a can of worms
No,
here,
it's
Gore,
just
and I'm steering you back
true.
on course. Finish your Hera point, or else.
Dardez is real good at Hera.
Okay, that's your point. Appreciate it, Gore.
I succincted it for you.
That's right. Fafnir plus Cthulhu rounds out the draft for the Atlantis Leviathans. Don't have Shred yet, unless this Osiris builds some kin size later on in that build. Still needing something
for vote.
Out of ADC for vote. Still options
Who
there.
wants to be thrown to the wolves?
Skadi was not the option that I assumed we would see, but it is what we see here, Gore. So do you think there's enough to deal with A Circle of Protection, a Fafnir, a Cthulhu for the Oni Warriors.
You know, I'm really interested in seeing that, I think, come out as well. The reason I laughed there is because, like, I want to pull it up, see how many times, you know, certain things. Because, like, vote Skadi, Bara Skadi, right? Like, that's if I see Skadi, that's who's playing, usually. Vote's played 3 Skadi games competitively.
Ever.
Oh,
not only this year, but
not just ever. But has won 2 of them, so like good for him.
My
so
man's winning 66% of his Skadi games.
And that's how you have to frame it.
Lifetime, no way. I have faith.
Look, hey, I'll tell you, God, like win rates for the Warriors look really good individually on this. Skadi is one that is very interesting to me. Again, when you are looking at it, you mentioned it, burn. I'm trying to think of people who are going to burn through this Cthulhu. I think later on, especially with like the ability damage, and specifically, I'm going to equate it more towards like Chiron's build that we've been seeing lately. Skadi's going to be able to do a lot with that. If you go for auto attacks, I think you're still going to be able to be like potent in the fight. But going into an auto-attack boxing match versus like an Ullr or an Erlang probably won't fit you very well. It feels like something that is geared very much towards this Cthulhu, dealing with that, dealing with the Eset as well. And so I'm excited to see what Vote can do with this. Again, it's not something that he has personally played too often.
Yeah, look, this is now bounce back time really for both of these teams, Score. When you start off your second half of the phase, both with a loss, because remember, the Leviathans after beating the Bolts, the undefeated team at the time, beating the Kings, the undefeated team at the time, then they go on to beat the Valkyries, which was a great win for the Leviathans. And then you lose in 3 games to the Solar Scarabs. So now you're starting off your second portion of the round robin, off a loss to the Scarabs. Oni Warriors, they beat the Jade Dragons. Great, it's uplifting for the Warriors. And then you get 2-0'd by the Camelot Kings. So really, Gore, for both of these teams, with how long the year is, one individual loss, not that big of a deal. But it's about resetting yourself and starting off kind of the second swing of things with a win here. Do you think momentum-wise, specifically in-game here, not wins and losses, you look at a Daji versus an Erlang Shen, it's a jungle matchup we've seen a couple of times. We talked about the junglers in this one. Do you like the Daji, the Erlang Shen to set the pace in this game?
Honestly, yeah, I think that with the Daji and Osiris beside them, although that's going to be more solo lane focused, but that's what we've been seeing a lot of so far. I think that is going to give them I think a good amount of push. Erlang can keep up with the Osiris. Like, that's something that they're going to have to be worried about a little bit more early on, and I think Ullr out of mid is going to be able to give them a lot of strength to lean on versus like what the Cthulhu's going to be bringing. He's just going to be team fight, knockups, disruption. So I think that you're going to have maybe a bit of a power punch more in the 2v2 than maybe a right-sided 3v3 with the solo laners coming into the phrase. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it.
Atlantis Leviathans versus the Oni Warriors, our second matchup of the day.
Thank you so much, Dave and Gore. Jumping in to our second set in week 5 of the SPL. It's J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug to help bring you the action. And we see the Leviathans going back towards this mage ADC, and not the traditional mage ADC that we're thinking of, like a magical hunter. It's Zapman back on the Eset, has played a few times in the past, even up against some of the top teams, and it has found success, at least so far, Mifflin.
Yeah, I don't know that I would leave the success of those matches at the feet of Zapman's
No,
Eset.
not necessarily.
So much as I would say that it has been successful, yes. Look, I'm not a massive fan of the Eset in duo lane. I feel like for the most part, Zapman is just really confirming objectives. I think it is more so a selection that the Leviathans make to allow Sheento to play things like the Ullr. I think that the Leviathans are saying to themselves, we need magical damage somewhere. Let's get something that can just make sure we're not losing out around these objective fights. And then let's put Sheento on a high pressure pick. And Zapman says, yeah, I mean, like I can like survive a lane, as he said. It's not so much as Zapman saying, man, I really like Eset and a Skadi. Like that's my matchup.
Well, at least for now, pressure does go over to the Warriors now that Zapman does have that level 2, has access to Wing Gust, and access to a little bit more wave clear, but so does Vote by hitting that level 2. Minions will be cleared out in favor of the Warriors. And I think it was interesting to mention that Vote only has 3 competitive games on this god. For how long this god has been around and for how long that Vote has been playing, that might have been one of the more surprising stats that Gore brought up on the desk.
He might be one of the most active Skadi players we got. It's Barracuda,
Panda Cat.
Panda Cat like thrice, and then Vote like thrice, and then everybody else at like 0. This god did not have a very long reign. Even on release, a lot of these hunters, it will at least go to the new hunter pick to test them out. We saw it with Charybdis for a while. She was really dominant. Skadi never really had that time in the sun, but she's always been fringe, almost really strong. It feels like either Calder is overtuned or undertuned. Right now we're in a sweet spot where it feels like Skadi can come out every now and then, but her main strength as a pick is the disruption factor. She says it herself. You should have brought those skis. Because when you drop the ice in the middle of a team fight, it really does make it difficult for anybody to continually apply their damage, especially for these auto-attack junglers, which is why I feel like we're seeing Skadi more often. With the Osirises, the Erlang Shens, the Bakasuras, the Mercuries, the guys who have to stick close to you and be precise with their auto-attacks at melee range. Pretty hard to do when you're like Pokemon sliding, like Pokemon Ice across the map.
Yeah, definitely is one of the more obnoxious CCs in the game to deal with. It might actually be the most annoying one. Outside of, I'd say, what, like Intoxicate might be one of the worst ones to deal with out there. So maybe that disruption factor enough for the Warriors, potentially enough to maybe pull some of those purification beads. You look over at QvoFred, back on the dodge E, something we bring up time and time again is someone to utilize pressure on beads or someone to at least create it for the rest of the team. And well, it won't just be Vote. NeilMah, with that Whirlwind of Rage and Steel on the Xing Shen, should be able to give QvoFred, or at least himself, some ability to pull some beads away.
Two large AoE CC abilities, all you really need to ask for. But Polymorph as well, pretty powerful. Nika caught inside his own tower, but he's inside his own tower at level 4, which means Panitom, who decided that he was going to test the waters, throws out one auto attack, loses 10% of his HP. Again, those changes in 9-5 to the structured damage output really still do make it difficult to look for these early dives. Nika just fine there.
Well, we do have Dardez going for a little bit of a different start from what we've seen of the mages. A couple of mages have been picking up this Doom Orb. More often than not has been either the Warlock Staff or maybe a Charon's Coin Rush, but Dardez wanted to get a little bit of extra power and movement speed into his build earlier on. And with the movement speed you get from that shield, Dardez will be moving pretty quickly through the jungle fights.
So Dardez is going to be much more difficult for Panitom to lock down in particular. Going to be really dependent on that pin, but it is worth noting in Mink form you also get additional movement speed after you land that, so Panitom won't struggle too much in keeping up, especially in going for this Golden Blade start, a 10% infusion once you finish off that item. But you are right to say that Dardez not only going to be zooming across the map, but pretty survivable, has Argus as self-heal on the back line, Polymorph, a very strong CC tool, and then also an HP shield that everybody's going to have to deal with.
Well, as we look at the current state of the game, Leviathans having 500-600 gold lead up over the Warriors just from some of this neutral farm. We have an ultimate out of Vote on towards Zapman. NeilMah does get eaten by the hammer. Will throw out the ultimate, pick up Zapman, and force the beads away from the Eset. Spirit Ball lands onto Neil, and Neil doesn't have many ways to get on out. Fairly tanky early on. Vote will body block, at least, and keep Ronngyu back. That's a couple ultimates thrown out in the dual lane. No blood just yet.
Clean play from Zapman there. Returns the stun, lines up the circle protection, charges it up. That was picturesque Eset performance. I wonder had he gone for Conduit Gem, whether or not that would have been enough damage to actually secure the kill. But sands of time, getting that CDR online very early. Good upgrade pass, I suppose. What Zapman's really got his eyes on it. We talked about it earlier. The Leviathans do not play through Zapman when he's playing the Eset. So aiming for that mid-game team fight / objective style of build makes sense to me. Zapman going for Warlock Staff in that first slot indicates that it's going to be a little while till this Eset's really doing the full brunt of her damage, but good to see that Zap's really landing those abilities consistently.
What I originally was going to kind of get into before we had a little brawl over in the left lane was it feels like we're definitely at a much slower pacing of this game. We've seen a little bit of action in a couple of these lanes out here, but definitely feels like we're pushing more towards mid-late game before one of these teams comes online. Is there any maybe kind of clear favorite as we start approaching probably the 10-15 minute mark for one of these teams to start getting real active?
Around 15 minutes, it's hard to argue against this Oni Warriors draft. I mean, you talked about it earlier, QvoFred and NeilMah together, just such a strong CC core for this team. The follow-up damage from Vote and Dardez should be there. Great disruption from Nika, who's already finished up that Oni Hunters as well. But the Leviathans, I think, are in a position where even if they are weaker in the mid-game, if they rotate into it with a lead, which they've already established, if they can get the defensive positioning around these objectives, Eset circle protection is just so incredibly difficult to fight into, even with some of this CC. If you're not even using it on an objective, let's say you're getting a 2-3-man powwow, drop circle protection immediately on landing, Everybody's got that damage mitigation, healing, burst damage for any enemies in range. Could make it difficult.
NeilMah on the wrong side of the obelisk there will not be able to take the second offering, blinks away from the pin out of Panitom. That will be the end of that fight, but it's an ultimate out of Ronngyu initially to try and get that one started, and that may have been what tipped off Neil to be willing to expend the blink to get out of that fight.
Yeah, I like that play, though. Panitom could have stuck to NeilMah, potentially even connected the 9 turns blessing, but you better believe NeilMah is returning that with his ultimate. Beads are available to Panitom, but just holding on to it, I think, more valuable. Panitom has got bigger fish to fry. You're not concerned about the Xing Shen support just yet.
NeilMah will walk over, pick up Zapman, but Vote's been zoned away. Calder is thrown out, half HP on the Eset. Circle protection still available, but Zapman gonna hold on to that one. Not a whole lot of follow-up, but that was about the final window of opportunity that NeilMah had before those beads were back up for Zap.
I really liked what Ronngyu did there, just standing in front of Vote saying, hey, I guess you could try your best to close gap. I will be stunning you, and you probably don't want that. Vote not willing to walk past, even in spite Ronngyu not having access to that ultimate transformation. Maybe Vote could have just ignored him, potentially had to dedicate the beads, but you're right to say that Circle Protection likely would have cost them that kill either way, all that mitigation and healing. So, good opportunity executed on by NeilMah, trying to make use of those burnt beads, and that's exactly what you have to do, at least put them back on cooldown as quickly as possible, open the door for some rotations from QvoFred. Early aggression from the Oni Warriors, still coming up empty.
And speaking of QvoFred and even Panitom in this instance, we haven't really seen much out of them just yet. It was one rotation from Panitom over to the left side to try and get a fight started. NeilMah blinked away. We saw Qvo kind of shying over towards that left side as well, but got spotted out by Ronngyu. At what point do we see these two junglers really try and get an impact going out there in one of these lanes?
I'm thinking Panitom right now, because I had thought it would be Golden Blade in the first slot, instead Stone Cutting Sword, so his fight very, very strong. Balance Blade in next slot, likely moving into the kin size. DPS very high for the Erlang. QvoFred, I mean, Transcendence is your timer. When that's done stacking, QvoFred will get active.
Well, maybe it's time for him to get active now, if only by force. Bead's gone away from Panitom. Nika dives into the backline, but Panitom will be able to turtle form on out. Jarcorrr in the backline of Sense of Madness goes down. Sheento finds the pick onto Dardez. QvoFred low, one hit away, and it's Jarcorrr to put him down.
Nika whiffs the ultimate on a Panitom, so the Erlang Shen allowed to stick around that healing, keeping him resustained in the fight. QvoFred, Dardez both caught out on their rotation, and Dardez losing the beads as well.
Nika now in a 2v1 against Jarcorrr and Panitom. Root is good from the pin, but the stun better from Nika, and that should keep Panitom and Yark away. I think we'll be safe to go back into the tower. NeilMah will be fine by juking away the axe toss that comes out of Sheento. So a 2-0 start for Leviathans. They already had the lead before going into that fight, and now that's gone up to a 2,300 gold and 1,800 XP lead.
I wonder how the Leviathans are going to take this pacing. We've seen in the past the Leviathans kind of slow it down once they get the lead and wait to group up as 5. But with this style of composition, I would really like to see the Levi's put early pressure specifically towards the Gold Fury. You've got decent advantage in team fight. Jarcorrr to set Madness, of course, very disruptive, but playing around your Eset on these objectives, so important. You've got Ronngyu with the coerce, Sheento and Panitom should be able to rotate over to that team fight, make it very quick burn. Greatest confirmation on the map belonging to the Leviathans. I'd love to see them leverage this lead towards that left-hand side.
We'll see if they put some pressure on Vote for Leviathans, at least for now. Oni Warriors grouping up in this right side jungle. Scorpion is there, and that'll be an easy pick-off for really both of these teams. With that Trebuchet at least in the right side of the map will force a little bit of attention to be dealt with for the time being. Ronngyu finds a stun onto NeilMah, and Neil should be fine. In fact, walking into the enemy territory, eats an axe toss by Sheento, and will at least get the Furious Roar out there just to slow down the damage out of Sheento, but that only affects the basic attack. That doesn't apply to the rest of the damage in Shinto's kit.
Yeah, and Ullr is all about that ability damage as reflected by the build. Transcendence and Jotun's likely a hi-rez in that next slot, so we'll be weaving in some of those auto attacks. More important to pick up that CDR, putting you at 40% once he finished up that third item. This Ullr has gone unchecked so far, a level lead, and now looking at the Pyromancer. QvoFred in range to defend, Dardez on the way as well.
Dardez moving in, and with Qvo, and then Dardez on that ward. That's enough to keep the Leviathans from committing to the objective. So an attempt at least to pull and maybe force, kind of go for a heat check over anything else to see how long it will take the Warriors to show up. Didn't take too long. I think you're right to say that Sheento basically allowed to freak farm in this mid lane, free cast as much as he wants. Cannot go for much longer if the Oni Warriors want to find success.
I mean, Dardez has been farming up very well as well, but that one death really slowed him down. Sheento's just going to get pressure by nature of being Ullr, so has controlled those mid camps. Vote and Zapman line up against each other. Surprised how much respect Vote is showing to Zap. Maybe concerned about this rotation. Why is this Eset getting so aggressive? Must have someone nearby. That someone is Panitom.
Vote will throw down the carpet, jukes away from the stun of the, or from the root of the pin. Still gets taunted in by the 9 turns blessing with 3 people here. Vote should go down. It's just a matter of who gets the hit. It'll be Panitom. Pick up by NeilMah. Gets 2 sets of beads in circle protection, but now with Dardez showing up, and Argus dropped down, and the powwow pulls in 3. NeilMah, credit to the first of the kills, but Panitom might not be able to find a way and does get a good pin up against Qvo, but NeilMah, Argus, everybody right and hot on his heels to try and pick up that kill. It's just a matter of who's got the gap close, who's got the damage, and it's Dardez.
Man, no rotation from Sheento there. Clears a wave, clears both mid camps, says, I hope you guys make it out alive. I will not be heading over. Even going to take away the back camps as well. This is what we call it the Sheento special.
Yeah.
Farm on the map belongs to Sheento, and that's just how it's going to be. We'll at least be here to help out Jarcorrr with this blue buff. The Ullr's been free farming a whole lot, now taking away a little bit from his own jungler. He's going to get that hi-rez finished up very, very quickly. Even with Dardez picking up a kill, the level lead further extends in favor of Sheento.
Almost 1,500 gold in hand after now finishing up that wave. Plenty for Sheento to spend, hitting level 15 himself as he clears out that wave. And pretty much everything on the right side of the map, sans speed buff. He at least left that one for Panitom to pick up. Said, you know what? Here's your buff. You can have that one. And that's on a good day.
It wasn't even up yet. Maybe if it was up, Sheento's heading over towards it. Probably
Poor
not.
Panitom.
Panitom's getting at least his own buff. You gotta hope. The Leviathans still nursing a pretty significant gold lead. I would like to see them group up on that gold fear. I know the last fight we saw on the left side of the map didn't go so great, but that was the Leviathans chasing out a kill, going into the tower up against Vote. In neutral territory, I still favor this Levi's draft.
Pyromancer started up by the Warriors. It's only going to be Jarcorrr here to maybe steal this one out. He'll drop down the mire, but the Oni Warriors will get the Pyromancer. Can they get out? Polymorph just off the mark from hitting Jarcorrr. It was just enough to scare Yark pushing any further forward. So the Oni Warriors continue to close up some of that 2K gold lead by picking up the objective. And Ronngyu just taking a stroll through the mid-tier 1 tower, I guess. More power to you.
Yeah, Sheento is trying to finish off that tower, and it does barely survive. Deep rotation from the Levi's. They want both.
Argus drops down, and the damage from Qvo is enough to finish off Panitom. Zapman, no beads, will get pulled back into this powwow and straight to the clutches of the Oni Warriors. Qvo picks up a double kill off an aggressive play by the Levi's.
I wonder what Vote did to make the Leviathans so mad. This is twice now the Leviathans just completely overextend, trying to shut down this Skadi pick. I mean, I get it. She's a relatively low mobility hunter who doesn't have CC immunity inherently in the kit, so you want to be able to lock her down, but at least wait for your beads to come back up. QvoFred taking a whole lot of damage. Sheento just shuts him down.
Wow.
In the 1v1. You got the Gold Fury, you got the fight, maybe leave the purple next time. Sheento has not rotated until just now, so maybe QvoFred was hedging his bet that the mid laner of the Leviathans was continuing his farm towards the center of the map. But with hi-rez, Transcendence, and Jotun's done, I think the farm spree is over. It's about damage output and getting involved.
Yeah, Sheento sensed that one of his camps was about to go down. He had like his spider sense. His team was like, somebody's at my purple buff. Hold on, that's my farm. I gotta stop it. Level 17 at 15.5 minutes. And this is why we kind of, sort of joked a lot about it in Season 8, but really the joke was serious. Sheento is one of the most effective farmers in the league, especially for his team, and you're seeing that reflected here. But, a fight happens, says, oh, I can't make it to that. I might as well take literally everything else on the map that's available to me.
It takes a special breed of jungler to be willing to play with that as well, right? Like, you're taking a team fight on the left side of the map, you look up at your mini-map and you see your mid laner clearing wave, clearing mid camps, clearing your back camps, and you gotta think to yourself, man, I would have liked to pick that up. I'm dead. I would like to respawn and go farm a little bit. Only a slight level
13,
disparity
bro. Help me.
for Panitom. I mean, QvoFred just now taking over to level 14, so Sheento, of course, not taking too much, but Panitom does sacrifice himself for his mid laner a fair bit.
Tier 1 tower will finally go down. Sheento gets the last auto needed to knock that one away. Axe just off the mark from hitting NeilMah. A three-man grouping of the Leviathans around the mid lane. I say that, but Panitom now heading back to see if there's any farm he can grab in the jungle. Dardez, half HP from a full combo. Sheento turns around to find the axe toss onto QvoFred, uses the beads, and Ronngyu thrown into the backside. Pal out by QvoFred. I'll pull back in. The Aegis only delays the inevitable. It's a pickup for QvoFred, but Dardez will trade his life in the process with that one. Panitom gets the kill, but Qvo batting away. Zapman is shown up, and Zapman finds the kill.
HP shields keep Panitom alive. The heal from 9 Turns Blessing, the shell from Ronngyu, then the Dispel Magic from Zapman, just keeping Panitom away from that death precipice. Clean play from the Leviathans. Not often you'll see them let Sheento die, because that's exactly what happens. Ronngyu could have rotated back, but instead sticks to the engagement, turns it into a 2-for-1.
And Panitom Jarcorrr can clear up a little bit of their jungle there. The Oni Warriors have been able to close up that gold lead that the Leviathans had earlier on. You saw on the charts reflected barely a few hundred gold separate them. Well, now it just jumped itself up to about a 1K lead for Leviathans. That experience as well now starting to spike its way up. 18 minutes in, 1,000 gold or less, and same with the experience means we're sitting at an even game, Myth.
We are, and I think the only thing that separates this game is this next round of neutral objectives. Pyromancer in just under a minute, Gold Fury just over a minute from respawning as well. Zapman has shown a propensity to start rotating out of this lane, which means that he could just be there for the Pyromancer. He could just be there for the confirmation. NeilMah playing pretty far up, nobody in range to actually punish him, so purple buff secured, and NeilMah is allowed to be annoying once more. I'm keeping my eyes on the dive. I feel like QvoFred is integral to the Oni Warriors' success in these team fights. Really needs to be landing these Palaus. If he can close gap on these priority targets, even in trading himself for Sheento in the last engagement, I'd argue a high-value trade for QvoFred. Team fight, though,
Argus
might be some trouble.
Dropped. Ronngyu half health, but good pin from Panitom to slow things down. NeilMah still holding on to ultimate. Probably doesn't want to have to use it since that transformation is up for Ronngyu. He'll be able to make it away. And it's only 2 ultimates expended during that fight, 1 for the Levi's and 1 for the Warriors.
That team fight snuck up on me, man. I got whiplash looking at the screen. Just all of a sudden, eruption around the red buff. Not much to be gained from either side. I suppose with Dardez, both relics down for about 40 seconds, the Leviathans feeling confident in their ability to step forward. But it was not cheap. You lose your girdle, you lose the blink from Panitom. It's a lot of your initiation missing for the Leviathans.
Pyromancer started. Qvo nearby. Circle protection will guarantee the Pyro, but it means it'll be a slight delay. And I only say slight because, well, there's a Breastplate of Valor and Sands of Time on Zapman before that ultimate will be back up. So decent CDR. And that'll be around the timer for the Gold Fury, maybe a few seconds late for sure, but Leviathans spend a lot to make sure that they can grab that objective. They keep themselves alive in the previous fight. And now as we start approaching this later portion, Myth, I gotta ask, do the Warriors have the tools to deal with Jarcorrr? Because so far, Jark hasn't really had to be a part of these team fights, but once he gets there, what does it look like for the Warriors?
Well, the builds aren't exactly about shutting down Jarcorrr. It's a whole lot of bursts, so you want to kill anybody else first. Or NeilMah just falls down.
Maybe so. Taunt into Spirit Ball. Neil uses the ult just in case somebody was still chasing, but no one was there. Jarcorrr teleports into the red buff, but Nika was already there waiting for him. And now it'll be a retreat for Leviathans from the fight, and instead over towards the Oni Fury. No ultimate from Zapman for a few more seconds. The Oni Fury might just be a coin toss. Damage in for the mid laner. Sheento is low. Sheento is gone. QvoFred puts him down up onto the Pal. Who is he going to pull in? It'll be Zapman and Ronngyu. Zapman uses his Aegis, tries to buy a little bit of time, but it is not enough. Dardez and both picking up a kill in the fight.
The Leviathans just too trigger happy to pull that Gold Fury. If they wait for Zapman's ultimate, you've got a great place to group up and take the fight. Damage mitigation, healing, secure, all there. But it was so clear what the thought process was. Leviathans pull the Gold Fury and the thing goes, oh man, this is burning too quick. Zap, how much longer that ultimate? Sheento caught out, still waiting on that heal from the ultimate to drop down. By the time it had come up, Zapman puts it in a pretty inopportune spot. The Oni Warriors take the team fight, and it may have happened around the Gold Fury, but the Fire Giant is the reward. 5 strong, belt on all 5, and just now the Levi's on the respawn.
21-minute Fire Giant, one of the earlier ones that we've been seeing in the SMITE Pro League, and really any kind of competitive Smite. It's quite often that we're waiting till 25, maybe 30 minutes, but Oni Warriors find a nice 3-man pick on the right, or on the left side, then get the fire on the right, and then make their way back over to the left side to grab that Oni Fury that was started up by the Leviathans earlier on. And now the Warriors have their first real lead of the game, 2,300 gold, about 7K experience.
Dardez has an entire item in his pocket, 2,600 gold to play with, so massive power spike to the Oni Warriors mid laner once he makes his way back towards base. Should be able to match up the build pace that Sheento's got on the other side. Vote can finish up an item as well, about 2,000 in pocket, so the Oni Warriors slow playing the siege, waiting for the Oni minion wave to spawn up, can now start to move their way over towards the Leviathan side of the map. Work your way through all 6 remaining towers. Don't even necessarily need to take an actual Phoenix here. If you get a pick or two, maybe you do move in towards those birds, but no skin off the Oni Warriors' back if it is just collecting gold caches on the map. Siege potential, pretty high, I'd argue. Space control from NeilMah, QvoFred, both incredibly high. Pretty easy to execute on the Powwow in these base siege situations. Nika, space control, pretty good too. Bumba's hammer finished, so he can resustain and use his HP bar more so as a resource. The Leviathans, on the other hand, I think you really need Zapman to step up on the defense. Your pseudo non-standard mage, Spearball can keep like archers out, but it's going to be pretty hard for Wingus to find any value. It's all about that circle protection. If it doesn't find value, that's the majority of Zapman's contribution to the fight lost.
It was initially just a soft defense from the Leviathans, but all 5 have shown up to keep this tier 2 tower alive, and for what little HP it does have left. On the right side of the jungle, Nika and QvoFred trying to find a path in. It's just Dardez, Vote, and Neil to push inside the lane. And with the C-set, with this Cthulhu, not much opportunity for the minion wave to join in the party. Qvo will split from the group. He'll over towards the mid lane. Nika will rejoin his party over in the left.
Tier 2 tower hanging on by a thread. QvoFred should be able to find some separation for his team, as he has pushed out a fair bit. Leviathans have sent over Panitom, so 4v4 on the left, 1v1 in mid. Qvo takes the tier 1. This tier 2, it just needs 1 or 2 autos.
Oh, NeilMah goes in, pops the horrific, and gets a couple sets of beads, picks up Jarcorrr, and throws him to the rest of the Warriors. But Jarcorrr does not take a whole lot of damage initially, rooted out and forced to descend to the madness. Now the damage is coming through. Nika goes into the backline, finds a massive ultimate, and Dardez will shut down Jarcorrr, but Nika may have stepped a little too far forward. All the CC in the world to lock him down, and Zapman to deal the final blow, but the bird is gone, and so is Ronngyu. Zapman on his last leg. The Aegis only buys him an extra second before QvoFred puts him down. And now, Sheento and Panitom, the last 2 to defend, but the Warriors aren't going to push into the Titan room just yet.
QvoFred forced to reset. Sheento wants to make him pay, but NeilMah so healthy and with the help right behind the wall. Sheento playing with fire here. Needs to be safe. Even if the door closes, he's got the leap to get back across. Not a whole lot of chase potential for the Oni Warriors. A phenomenal team fight to the Oni Warriors, though. The engagement onto Jarcorrr. NeilMah, that ultimate just so clean. Clips Zapman, Zap beads it. Jarcorrr tossed back in. The chase down there. Circle protection used to try and peel out for Jarcorrr, but just not going to work with all the anti-heal already picked up by the Oni Warriors. Divine Ruin finding some value there. And from there, what did I say? If circle protection goes down and it isn't doing much for your team, that's all you're going to have from Zapman. He fell down immediately afterward.
Zapman uses both of his relics to try and stay alive. The shell and the frenzy both used in the fight to try and push back, but the Leviathans go down in the team fight and they lose their left Phoenix, the most important one for the Oni Warriors to take should they go for this next Fire Giant push. That one will be up in about 40 or so seconds. And the Oni Warriors have a decent position to try and fight back into this one. Dardez on his back to base gets his Obsidian Shard. He's got a fully upgraded starter item as well. He's already hitting pretty hard. Now that he's got that % pen to maybe deal with Jarcorrr, gonna hit a little bit harder.
We'll get a desperation check for the Leviathans here. Generally teams with their back against the wall like this, 8,000, 9,000 gold down, Fire Giant soon to respawn. We might see the Leviathans try and group up, find an ambush in the jungle. We see that so often. But looking at how they're playing the map right now, seems they want to go for a true engagement, like actually defend around the Fire Giant or potentially allow it to go down. Zapman makes the rotation early on, so those fire minion waves on the left-hand side don't have much to work through before they start to approach that Titan room. The Oni Warriors, they can take this one of two ways. Blitzkrieg the Fire Giant, trying to shut it down early, or drag this team fight out as long as possible and let those minions put in some work.
Now, it'll be a drag out. They start up the fire. They force Jarcorrr to make a decision whether he wants to stay or retreat. Jarc does retreat for the time. They slow go on the fire giant. It's only Vote dealing with it. Ronngyu eats about a third of his HP. Panitom finds a taunt onto QvoFred. Half HP on the dodgy. That's just going to get the bubble away from Panitom. And now QvoFred's got to get out of the fight, but he doesn't have the escape to do so. Panitom finds the first pick of the fight. And now it's a 4 versus 5. Ronngyu jumps in, finds a stun on 1. NeilMah eats the Spear Ball and the Circle Protection, but he will be able to find a way out at least for now. Nika chasing out 1, and it's Dardez to try and help NeilMah get out of this fight, but Jarcorrr is low. Vote is gone. Sheento finds the second kill of the fight. NeilMah only has a sliver of HP left to live. He's able to jump away from some damage and needs a little bit more help to find a way out, but he will not. It's Jarcorrr to find the pick.
Nika still alive and surviving for a good while. Bumba's Hammer and Tether will keep him around in this team fight for as long as you need. Panitom forced back to base to defend, so will not be there to siege into the Fire Giant. And already, QvoFred on the respawn, about 20 seconds here. An opportunity for the Leviathans to look towards Fire Giant, but as of now, scattered across the map. The Oni Warriors, they may have slowed down that team fight just enough. If Nika can get in there and find a little bit more time for his team, they might be able to stop the Levi's.
Circle Protection not up yet, but should be here soon for Zapman. But Nika already in the middle of the pit. Ultimate doesn't find anybody there, and he keeps walking through that fire, knocked up by the Fire Giant as well as they back out from the Fire Giant for the Leviathans, but Dardez is caught in the middle of the pit all by himself. QvoFred on the way, Circle Protection down. This one should go to the Leviathans unless a miracle play comes through. Can Qvo find the cleanup kills? Beads out of Zapman, beads out of Panitom. It's only Ronngyu pulled in, and the Leviathans get fire on all 5.
Twice now, the aggressor on the objective lose out on the team fight immediately afterward. The Leviathans around the Oni Fury a little bit earlier on lose out on the engagement. The Oni Warriors take the Fire Giant. This time it's the Oni Warriors getting proactive. Start up the Fire Giant, start up the fight, but QvoFred picked a little bit too early, losing that 1v1 up against Panitom, and the Leviathans take Fire Giant for themselves. Siege potential pretty high for this composition as well. And, well, still plenty of towers to collect gold on the map. Gold pretty equalized. I think we will see the Oni Warriors put up a solid defense on these tier 2s just to buy as much time as possible. Don't expect them to really sacrifice any lives here. 2 cooldowns you need to keep your eyes on for the Leviathans. Jarcorr's Ascent into Madness and Zapman's Circle Protection. Circle Protection a little bit more difficult to utilize in an aggressive situation. Dropping it on Phoenix or in a tier 2, that mitigation will actually assist your minions as well. Keep that backdoor protection off, have a spot where you can fight into as a team, but pretty easy to avoid that damage if you are the Oni Warriors. Descent on the Madness, on the other hand, I mean, it is just space control, just chain CC, and the Oni Warriors have not got the greatest answers to it.
Not yet. Defense, 4-man out of the Oni Warriors, 5 with QvoFred now rotating his way in to defend against the tier 2 tower and left. Leviathans aren't going to bite to the left lane. A minute and a half of their Fire Giant is already gone, and only have been able to find, I believe, a single tower over in the left side of the map for the time being. All tier 2s left standing and all fairly healthy. I mean, for the Leviathans, where do they make that first punch point?
I thought it was going to be on the left-hand side. Seems like they've got their eyes on neutral objectives first. Pyromancer spawning up, and we'll make that rotation out of base a little bit quicker. Can I see the golden hand, Doug? Maybe the Leviathans are sitting on some pretty significant power spikes. 2,000 for Jarcorrr, 2,000 for Sheento. Sheento could finish up that Heartseeker if he so chooses. Jarcorrr get a little bit tankier. So I guess it makes a bit of sense that this slower rotation, this slow play around your Fire Giant power siege. But now grouping up on the right-hand side, the Leviathan's taking a very lackadaisical approach. Half your Fire Giant time's already worn off. You only got a minute and a half left and still 3 tier 2 towers standing for the Oni Warriors. Seems like the Levi is just happy to reset this game to neutral with this Fire Giant.
Seems that they'll just take it as a, hey, we kept it away from the Oni Warriors more than anything else, and just try and hold out for the time being. But it will be an enhanced Fire Giant when the next one spawns in just a little over 2 minutes. Split grouping, 3 and 2 for Leviathans towards the mid and right side. 2 of them to deal with the Trebuchet, but even Ronngyu starting to make his rotation out.
I misspoke. I thought Jarcorrr was going to get tankier with his last item. Pythax piece picked up. Zapman getting a little bit more survivability, although the entire team really, as long as you're within that aura range. But maybe most important is now Jarcorrr is a legitimate threat. He's got enough damage output, the gems finished up, the Pythags piece, that once he descends into madness, Vote's got to be concerned about it. Dardez, for the most part, needs to be concerned. But the double-edged sword being, well, you're not exactly the most tanky. I suppose Jarcorrr took a peek at the builds from the Oni Warriors and said, okay, well, they're not really itemizing for me anyway, so I'm allowed to go for this slightly more greedy selection.
Will be the right tier 2 taken by Zapman and Ronngyu, so the last little influx of gold for the Leviathans before this Fire Giant wears away. They're Victus 5. Thought for a moment they would push up the mid lane, but I guess with that buff wearing away, they're fine with taking their prize of the right tower, and we'll all back away for the time being. So Leviathans have neutraled out the gold difference that the Oni Warriors had built up. What was around a 7,000 gold lead the Warriors had before that Fire Giant has been brought down to 100.
That's a pretty cool chart. I'm actually, you don't see games swing back and forth like that. Usually it's one major play that really spikes this, but that is a slow incline for both teams once they start to make their own pushes into this match. Now in a completely neutral state, 11-11, 32 minutes in, Fire Giant enhanced, spawning in about 30 seconds. Relic Roundup, everything available to the Oni Warriors, everything available to the Leviathans. Every single cooldown up as well. It's all about vision, who's establishing it first. 2 sentries in pocket for the Oni Warriors, but they've already got established vision around the Fire Giant itself. 3 in pocket for the Leviathans. Pretty important to control that vision in the Fire Giant pit. Leviathans now control of it to them. This one all comes down to play on field. I'm keeping my eyes on QvoFred. He was the breaking point for the Oni Warriors around that last engagement. Panitom just got the better end of that engagement himself. That 1v1 goes his way handily. Got to avoid that if you're the Oni Warriors. Leviathans, though, I think it's clear. Panitom says, yeah, let's run that back. Wherever Qvo is, that's where I want to be.
Panitom did lose 1 safety net in his Magi's cloak. That bubble has been popped for another 40 or so seconds until he has access to it. So that could be a potential target for Neil or for Qvo to try and burn beads, and the other one to pull him in. Jarcorrr on the right side being poked by Qvo and Nika. Jarcorrr will be fine to make itself out. Does have that Pythags for some sustain in the fight, but you can see just how much one ability from Sheento is doing to some of these carries.
Yeah, what was that? 15% of Vote's HP from just Hail of Arrows. Oni Warriors get vision in the Fire Giant pit yet again. Deep vision for the Leviathans around that speed buff, so if the Oni Warriors start losing out on this engagement, the Levis will be privy to it. Otherwise, decent vision coverage in the actual Fire Giant territory by the Oni Warriors themselves. Neither team feeling confident in their ability to actually pull the objective proper, but you can see Panitom, he has established his goal. Saw QvoFred pushing some mid-waves, and Panitom decided to meet him there. Oni Warriors rotate through, trying to back up their boy, but a disengage from the Leviathans. We are teetering on the knife's edge, man. This could be it.
NeilMah goes in, finds 2 with the ult, and gets 2 sets of beads. And QvoFred will go in towards Zapman. Now with no CC immunity to his name, Zapman will drop the circle at his feet. But it's a dunk in from Nika to remove any of the healing. Zapman will pop as soon as Dardez jumps into the fight. Jarcorrr descent to the madness, puts Dardez at critical health. The polymorph will keep Ronngyu back, but it's not going to stop Jarcorrr. The damage is too much, and it's 2 now for the Leviathans. Even Vote in danger. The swipe just off the mark. But look at the tanks for the Oni Warriors, still very healthy. Vote will find his way out of the fight, but Nika is batting away at what little HP that Ronngyu has. The D-transform will not be favorable for Ronngyu, and Nika will continue to walk at the enemy team, a 2-for-2 trade.
That Bumba's hammer finding its value. Nika just resustaining and utilizing that true damage properly to finish off the kill. Sheento dedicates the leap. NeilMah nearby, but nobody else from the Oni Warriors in range to deal damage. What I saw there, though, was Vote actually dedicates a whole lot of his time trying to shred Jarcorrr. Kin size is a last item pickup for Vote. You'd think, okay, well, maybe he can't just descend into madness in my face. If you're the only one doing it and you really don't have an attack speed build, you're not finding the maximum value from that kin size. So Jarcorrr just turns around, starts doing some AoE damage, and Vote forced to disengage fully back towards his own base. Jarcorrr is a massive threat. Remember how that fight starts as well for the Oni Warriors. Beads burned off 2. NeilMah comes up massive with a Blink ultimate. QvoFred makes use, pulls in Zapman. Well-executed execution. Nika just removes the healing and Zapman in one fell swoop. you're thinking of, or at least I'm thinking to myself, all right, GG. Like, that's it. Oni Warriors dominated this fight. But Jarcorrr, on his own, put up enough damage and enough separation that he keeps the game alive.
He's got a pretty big backpack on that Cthulhu to keep the team going. Fire Giant started up by the Oni Warriors. Enhanced Fire Giant at that. Half HP on the objective. The Oni Warriors, will they keep the commit to it? No, they will not. They'll walk out of the pit because 3 of the Leviathans have stepped forward to keep them back. NeilMah lost a little bit of his HP during that scuffle. Can use his HP 5 from his passive to keep himself alive. But the Oni Warriors now with a full reset on the Fire Giant and a couple of players to reset to the back lines. We'll hold on for now.
Both teams reset themselves to an exact neutral state, less than 1,000 gold. The difference, 37 minutes in. Enhanced Fire Giant for either squad could just spell the end. Seems to me the Oni Warriors playing with a bit more confidence, specifically Nika, who has proven that he is nigh unkillable in some of these team fights. Pyromancer pulled out, but just trying to bait the Leviathans in. It's got to be like a pick or something. That really has to be it, because as it stands, in about 10 seconds, we're going to be exactly where we were 4 minutes ago once that team fight started up. Completely neutral standings. Relics all on the respawn. 5 seconds on Aegis from Vote. Every single ultimate available as well. Do it all over again. Run it back. Which one can win out clean? Levi's or the Onis?
Last time was a 2-for-2 trade, which reset to neutral. QvoFred's got his bubble. Panitom has his. Nika starts with the Fire Giant. He can sustain a majority of this, but he's still taking a lot of damage from the rest. Sheento pops his Aegis. QvoFred goes in. Beads are still up for the mid laner,
Big
for
whiffs.
Zapman, but all the chains have missed from QvoFred. He's got to go back. Jarcorrr goes up into the colossal mode, and he is swinging away. QvoFred, the first one out. NeilMah picks up 2, but doesn't find much more beyond there. The follow-up is just not there from the Warriors. The Leviathans have picked off 2. Ronngyu has picked up a double kill. Nika, the only healthy one on the Oni Warriors, and scoring off against Panitom. He's not winning that fight too nicely. NeilMah goes in to try and help out, but it's just not enough. 3 down for the Warriors.
Massive misplays from QvoFred cost the Oni Warriors that team fight. Dardez on the retreat. Might be able to turn it around onto Zapman. Zapman survives. Everybody dead on the Oni Warriors. A blink-in from QvoFred got crushed by Dispel Magic. Late beads from the Dardez. Pal up late as well. 50% HP. Pulls in nobody. The only real input QvoFred had on that entire fight was 1 auto attack on the Sheento. And Sheento died.
Ronngyu will soak up the damage from the Phoenix. Leviathans have 8 seconds until QvoFred is back up.
Circle protection.
3 at critical HP, but Zapman does have his ultimate, and that should be the game for the Leviathans. QvoFred's got to put in a lot of work. Pal up, and how many can he pull away? It'll be all 4 of them. A massive pull from QvoFred. The damage back onto Zapman gonna be good. Damage onto Panitom needs a little bit more, and with Vote helping out, the Oni Warriors have stopped the Leviathans in their tracks, but that Titan is at critical health.
Yeah, go ahead, drop your circle protection. What good is it if you're not inside of it? QvoFred removes them from the line of safety, and the Oni Warriors buy themselves a little bit more time in this game. If Sheento survives that fight, that's GG. Clear as day. But the Leviathans have got to do it yet again. Not the greatest confirmation, or composition rather, for a backdoor. I'm not certain that Sheento's in a position where he could do it. Keep your eyes on the Oni Warriors. Sheento seems to me like he's going to make that attempt. And he's not walking on any wards either. They're not going to know until he's literally there.
And Nika is here, though. Sheento
Can Nika
heading
stop
to the
him?
right
It's
side.
low.
Nika is going to have to be the sole defense. He sees the jump from Sheento, has spotted him out, and it's going to be close. Beads are gone. Ultimate in. Sheento needs a little bit more damage, and, well, he's going to pop the Aegis to get some against the Titan. A jump in place, but Nika and the Titan are enough to defend, and the Oni Warriors will be the ones to go to the Titan instead. Up on the Pal, doesn't matter. Oni Warriors defend the base, wipe 4, hold out Sheento, and take game number 1.
What an absolutely ridiculous end of that match. The Oni Warriors just do it properly. Nika on the defense of the Titan executed perfectly, and the Leviathans from the brink. How much HP did that Titan live? It must have been sub 2K.
Like 1,000.
Like, if even. That is absolutely wild. Every single team fight up until that point, invalidated by the last 5 minutes of that game. Laning phase didn't matter. 38 minutes in, it was dead even, and then all of a sudden it was over.
Just like that. QvoFred and Vote spawning in at the last moment, able to find a miracle save against the Titan with what was slivers of HP. The Oni Warriors hold out on their base. They stop Sheento from backdooring it, and they win the game themselves. Oni Warriors up 1-0 in the set. We'll come back for game 2 right after this.
Charge a couple cool K for the features. It ain't about the money, then you probably can't reach us. Hey, and I put it on mamas. Do it for the soul, for the fam, and the commas. Don't act, be chill with the dramas. All you gotta do is be you and be honest. Eating on papaya with my main thing. Baby getting bread, I'm on the same thing. No rocks in it, what a plain Jane. Put my on, they used to gangbang. They be tryna pay me like a new guy. But I'm buzzing in the apple like a fruit fly. I'll be somewhere in Seattle getting neck bone. And I'm really not the one that you should rest on. Uber eat Jamaican to the B&B. All the moves we making, they ain't seeing me. Rooftop bar for the scenery. I give a fuck about a mug and what they mean to me. I'm that saucy little from the middle, man. Told that baby bounce it for me, she gon' dribble that. Got some in the paper, got it mummy rap. Got no minutes for the funny act. Hey, and I put it on Caesars. All I got is certified Trump beaters. Charge a couple cool K for the features. It ain't about the money, then you probably can't reach us. Hey, and I put it on mamas. Do it for the soul, for the fam, and the commas. Don't act, be chill with the dramas. All you gotta do is be you and be honest. Monastery on the front of middleman. What you know about it, baby, riddle that. Heard a lot of rapping, very little fact. You the type of that we giggle at. Gold all on my mouth look like a chandelier. I'm about to disappear and make 100 grand appear. I'm about that cash money stunting like my daddy. Out in public, let me poke it on the patio. Couple shots of Henny, baby, I'm with anything. And if that run up on me, let the sing.
One of the most absurd endings to a game we have had in many, many moons. And it's the Oni Warriors who are able to capitalize. They're tightened down to like 5% HP, another auto attack or two, and the game is over. But the Oni Warriors, QvoFred, they're able to stay alive, and they grab a win here in game number 1. And you only get action like that here in the SMITE Pro League, powered by our friends over at Prime. So remember, every single month you're getting free Prime games anyway with your subscription. Also free in-game content for specific games, free Prime subs, and also action like that here in the SMITE Pro League, powered by our friends at Prime. So thanks again to Prime for being with us here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League, and you at home for being with us, because my goodness, what a game 1 we just had between the Leviathans and the Oni Warriors. And I'll thank Gormizer for being here with me on the desk.
Yeah.
Gore, you know, when games end like that, you almost have to ignore the other, like, 30 minutes of the game, right? Because, I mean, it all built up, and it brought us to one or two decisions that ended that game.
I was legitimately, so we're watching it, Fire Giant fight, Levi's, massive win on it. Qvo dies, like, almost immediately in that fight. I think you, to quote you, you had said, like, oh, this game's over. And so I'm gearing up, like, I'm thinking, okay, what exactly is like the synopsis? What am I thinking of in this game? And QvoFred was a talking point for a Leviathans win, because early on you could see very impactful in the game, but as the game went on, and specifically here from this 24, 26 minute mark to pretty much the 38-minute mark, we didn't see anything from him. But then this play happens, Dave.
Unbelievable.
This play comes out. He had done nothing for 10 minutes. It had been not a great look for him on the late game dodgy, and then comes in, and you got to give Vote the credit, because Vote's there to get a lot of that damage, but a huge powwow.
Look at Qvo's player cam. That's what I need to see. Oh, that's the end of the game. Okay. In the moment,
I want to see what he does like right then, right there, because that is such a nuts defense for him.
Yep, that is.
And then a base race at the end. I mean, Sheento, if left alone,
that's all he can do.
Sheento, if left alone, gets a win.
Yep. Oh,
but
absolutely.
the control, the CC, the presence from the Warriors to read that. I mean, that was. God, that was such a good end of a game, man.
You don't
like,
get that
I want
often,
to watch it again.
Right? You don't get the 90% of the wins you get, although like based around a team fight, right, like a DSI, something like that. Another handful of percentages have to do with people being caught out, things like that. But like a base race, a full team getting wiped under a Titan, and then the other team pushing, and then a chance for the Leviathan still to end, that is so infrequent that it just, oh man, I'm excited. These two teams, and look, while it's easy to boil the game down to those final moments under the Titan, the rest of the game was very competitive as well. There were moments where the Warriors stormed back and it looked like the game was just in their control. There were moments where the Leviathans stormed back and the game was in their hand.
I mean, after the second Fire Giant, right?
Yeah.
Like, I remember looking up, like, gold was like 80K for each team within like 300 of each other. Like, they were dead even as they could be going into some of those last fights. That was awesome.
Now, I think
that was just awesome. That was a good game.
It was a great game. Man. I think you then can start to boil down some of the individual picks. I wasn't necessarily sold on the Hera during picks and bans. I'm sold on Dardez's Hera in general, but Hera's been out of the meta for a while now. Wasn't sure how it was going to look in this game. Saw some good, some bad from it. Ended up near top damage, if not top damage, in the game here in game number 1. And so I think some of the unique styles that the Oni Warriors wanted to bring out ended up working.
Yeah.
But again, small moments, small changes in damage. Suddenly the Leviathans win instead of the Oni Warriors. What a game number 1 between the Oni Warriors and the Leviathans.
And the big thing to me, the
Tell me.
Warriors just ended the Ullr win streak for the Leviathans.
Yeah?
Every game, like 5 games in a row, 100% win rate on that god. It's been you can see it in the top 3 bans up against the Leviathans, something that it felt like you had to get rid of, especially if they were first pick. And I was even talking about it going into picks and bans last time as something that I thought was going to maybe be a mistake that they picked it up. And ultimately, Qvo's performance specifically on Adaji early on, that transition towards the end, and then just the control that they had, the Xing, the Osiris, a lot of what they were able to pick up there for the Warriors. Did a great job of kind of bullying it back into place and taking care of it.
Yeah, you know, we so often talk, all right, you know, like if you lose a game where you feel like you're in control and you feel like you're going to win, like how do you actually go back and like reassess your strategy as far as picks and bans go? The Leviathans were about as close as you can get to winning that game with that composition as you can be. And so I truly do wonder if the Leviathans changed some stuff up, because there were good moments and bad moments in that game for sure. But ultimately, that comp was 99% of the way to a win in game number 1. Just some good individual plays from some individual members. And for now, the Leviathans are going to bring back the Eset. Wonder if the Oni Warriors feel like they might have to draft Adaji earlier on here, if that's what they want for QvoFred. I could see the Leviathans picking something like that earlier on, take it away from Qvo. But Xing ends up being the first lock-in for the Warriors.
So go ahead and lock in Osiris.
Yep.
Okay, now Erlang, Shen, and Ullr.
Yeah, it has to be, right?
Like, I mean, that's everything is the exact same. It's the bans are in the exact same order. The picks so far, the exact same order.
I don't know if you can give Qvo the Daji though. I'm telling you, Qvo on Daji.
But
is
he
just
locked it. So what he did is he locked it in right here
I
before
know,
they
but-
could ban it.
Right, I'm wondering if the Leviathans
Do
want
you
that for
pick it?
Panitom,
Yeah.
right? I just feel like Qvo is such a different animal when he's playing Daji. Panitom has played Daji, but remember the last time we saw it was 2-8 up against the Solar Scarabs in a Game 3 loss. Still trust Panitom, of course, but it wasn't a great look. I just think it's that good for Qvo. I
Yes,
mean,
it has
outside
been
of the massive
out
setup
of
at the
this
end of the
world.
game, it's looked really good. What do you say, Erlang, Shen, Ullr?
Erlang,
is
Shen,
it here?
and then
All
Ullr.
right, Gib. So it's
Oh!
a different look. And Hindu Man, watching from a beach somewhere, excited about the Geb being locked in. Does change up the dynamic of the Leviathan's composition a bit.
If it makes you feel better, I'm right here excited about seeing Geb locked in, right? I think like it's
It does
so
make me feel better.
a lot of it's going to be the question about, like, you know, his passive coming into play only works if there's, you know, crit on the other side. So we can ignore that one for now and maybe let the casters tackle that if it comes into play. And instead, we can look at what Geb brings to the table outside of that. The shield, I think, is going to be very helpful. And in this draft, as of right now, really for the Erlang Shen, right? Like, the guy who's going to be going in there way too deep, who's going to have to be in the fray of the fight, and here's something that's going to get you out of CC and is going to give you a little bit of extra health to try and hightail it out of there with your abilities. So I think that's going to work out really well. Cataclysm, not only is the base damage on it really good, but I think the stun, the team-wide, team fight potential it has is incredible. And, you know, we don't get to see it as often because rollout is very easy to dodge and ignore sometimes, but if you get a good rollout like knockback on someone, that's enough to get them out of position and really change the way that a team fight can go.
And another now pivot that the Oni Warriors will pick up the Chiron. It's a Chiron, a 43% win rate, Gore, but we have seen plenty of it picked. Really has looked good for Netrioid on the Camelot Kings. We know what Chiron does later in the game, full build.
Yep.
Centaurus, as long as it hits and then training exercise, melts through targets. So expectations, I think, still there, even despite a sub 50% win rate.
Well, and I like that pick even more right here because, you know, when I look at the Eset, Zap has been building mostly power, but like even if you build any quote-unquote, let's call them tanky items on there, most of the ones that you'd see picked up to make a mage tanky are just going to be health-based, right? Chiron, the build has been going into very health-damaging-based. And so I think that I look at this Chiron, I think Eset, I think this Geb are all going to have some struggles up against it, and so I think that's going to be a solid pick for them. Again, the amount of damage that you do at the start of a fight if you open up, or even in the middle of it with a Centaurus, I think opens things up. But it's less even the Centaurus damage, although that's been phenomenal, especially when it hits like mid laners, and more the masterful shot afterward and the wide slow you can get. If you throw all 3 shots and try to hit all 5 members of the other team, or at minimum maybe get 3 or 4, you're now getting a 4 to 5 man slow just off of the back of that, and that's going to help so much in elevating your team fight.
Know how else you can slow down target scores? A nice sanctified field from Olorun. That slows down people, doesn't it? Oni Warriors get themselves a great ultimate now to team fight around, so you get Xing Chen, who could be whirlwinding people into, or I guess out of a sanctified field, depending on how the team fight is flowing.
If Neil really is like mad at Vote, or
Yeah.
I guess technically
out.
Dardez could play this, like throw him out of there to
Yep.
ruin a team fight.
Decent looking team fight for the Oni Warriors
Yeah.
now. I mean, in any team fight immediately just gets improved with the sanctified field. There's only a handful of gods in SMITE, I think, that you can slot in, and the ultimate is
There it
that
is.
strong that it totally changes up a team fight. Gore, did you expect this? The way you nodded your head seemed like it was what was on your mind.
There's only one person who's been playing Camazotz in the solo lane lately, and there's only one god that you really want to do it up against, and that's Olorun. With the Cthulhu banned, it was that question of how much do you want to dive those sanctified fields and deal with them?
Yeah.
And realistically, it's just that ult that is going to help you, that bat out of hell to help chase him down. So it makes sense for the Leviathans to go there. That being said, performance-based, like, is it going to do what you need it to? Like, there's a reason Camazotz is not being played otherwise in this matchup. And so I think that's the only big concern I have for this pickup is just whether or not it will work out for them. I think they've only played it once so far this phase, and it was a loss, so it doesn't necessarily have a good track record for it, but it was this exact kind of matchup that they were trying to deal with then. And I think that's what that's the goal. That pick is strictly an Olorun killer, and that is all that they want it for.
Robin, 67% win rate across 15 games, so plenty of Robin that we've seen. Has fallen a bit, Gore. Was like insta first pick ban for a week there at the beginning. Now we've seen more Robin, but also have seen it flexed into the jungle a little bit. And so there is still flex potential for the Oni Warriors here between this or Osiris rather and the Robin. And we have seen Osiris for QvoFred plenty. I think it's an average pick for him. You know, Qvo very good at the game. I don't think Osiris stands out to me as one of his best or his worst. I think it's a decent jungle pick for QvoFred. Could also see him on Robin, not something we've seen much lately.
But for a long time there, Qvo's Robin was like the thing for the
one. We've
Warriors,
also
right?
seen Nika on Osiris, so there is flex potential here, Gore, between the Osiris and the Robin. Really, at this point, it's matchup dependent. Do you want the Robin to be against the Camazotz? Do you want the Osiris to be against the Camazotz? And take Erlang Shen into account there as well. You know, Robin seems pretty good at keeping pace in the jungle. Maybe you like it up against your Erlang Shen.
I think that it's going to not only keep pace, but I think it's going to give them a lot of opportunities when you're looking at matchup-wise. Like Robin, you know, in the lane, it's really not that bad either up against something like a Camazotz. But I'm thinking someone who's going to get hands-on up against something like an Eset more often, having that ability to just immune yourself through like a Spirit Ball super early on, and a team fight's going to help out there. I think it's going to be a little maybe more prevalent in mid lane altogether. Up against a Xbalanque as well, it's going to be nice to be able to help chase him down. So it feels like something that, in my mind, just because of what we've seen on Qvo, I kind of want to see him taken to the jungle. But like you said, both these picks have a lot of the same merits where it comes to their early game presence. Their capabilities to chase down are locked into their ults. It's just, do you want someone who's a little tankier through, you know, the tether with a stun, a lot of slows in the Osiris, or do you want someone with the root with some healing? A lot of good damage on that from the Ravana, of course, the damage mitigations that we've been seeing as well. So both of those being valid jungle picks. I think both of them still being valid solo lane picks. But I don't know. And the two of them, after what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, I think I'm leaning more towards the Osiris in the solo lane, just as a more consistent factor than what we've gotten to see out of Ravana. Ravana was very feast or famine, and a lot of the times we started to see more famines towards the end.
Yeah, you know, I wonder. I mean, Robin just feels very dynamic to me. Not that Osiris isn't, but you know what you're getting with an Osiris. I feel like Robin, just style of play-wise, brings something super unique to the jungle. I guess you're jumping in on both, and you got a way to lock down targets on both. But with Robin, we've seen that real good snowballing potential earlier on. Now it's about the Leviathan score, about kind of bouncing back after what was a frustrating loss in game number 1.
You're going to ask a hard question.
No.
Oh.
I'm going to keep it simple here. I actually think they've got a pretty good chance to do so, Gore. Do you like the Leviathan's chances at bouncing back here in game 2?
Almost all of it depends on this Camazotz, right? If Jarcorrr has a great game, then they're going to win. If it falls apart, then that's it.
Well, the Oni Warriors steal one away from the Leviathans in game 1. Can they do so again in game 2? Got to dive in to find out.
was a very close battle in game number 1 that the Oni Warriors come out on top with, and now the Leviathans have their chance to bring it to game number 3. The Dez does a fantastic job breaking down these compositions, breaking down the matchups that we could see over between the jungle and the solo lane. But it will be Nika taking the Raven up against the Camazotz. We have a double assassin lane squaring off against each other. And Miflin, I'll kind of pose this to you. We haven't really seen this Warriors axe nearly as much anymore. It seems to have kind of fallen by the wayside with the rise of Bluestone, and even with the Golden Blade meta kind of coming in. How do you feel about it as an item over here for Camazotz?
I am not a Warriors Axe fan because Bluestone is just incredibly strong, but I suppose has some decent upgrade options, giving you over a little bit of bruiser stats as well. We saw that Jarcorrr struggled in the past to survive some of these mid to late game ganks. Maybe a Sundering Axe, a Hero's Axe, that could help out a fair bit. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think maybe it's even in a spot where it's like, it got nerfed so everybody just stopped looking at it, but it's still pretty good. What you are sacrificing is lane clear, but what you get in exchange is perhaps a bit better just trade potential up against this Raven.
Forgot that we had a Xbalanque in the game for a moment. I saw Zapman
you
set.
freeze.
Yeah, I looked over and went, oh, Xbalanque mid. It's not like we haven't seen the Xbalanque mid before. We'll talk more about it after this 2v2 that Nika is losing out on slivers of HP. Needs one more hit, but Jarcorrr also in danger. And it's QvoFred with the cleave autos to find the first blood. Maybe a bit more up against Panitom. Nika has stepped back in, gets a little bit of his healing. Now Panitom definitely can't fight against the two of them. First blood very early to the Warriors.
That's a Bumba's dagger, by the way, for the Osiris. That's not like a mannequin's. That was not quick damage that just like really caught him off guard. That was a whole lot of auto attacks from QvoFred for an incredibly long amount of time. Nika buys the time for his team, or for QvoFred rather, to deal all that damage by just great positioning on this Raven, pathing very well through his own minion wave, blocking out some of those autos, warding Sigil, finding some pretty massive value early on for some survivability. And that will cost the Leviathans a bit of that early presence. Nika should be able to get that Soul Eater online a bit earlier than he would have otherwise. Jarcorrr on this Camazotz really would like to be able to just maintain parity in this lane. You don't pick Camazotz for his late game scaling. You don't pick him for playing safe in the lane. This is a god that is meant to bully. And well, with gold as it is, assist for the first blood to Nika might just get bullied.
2v2 in left. Neil and Vote have been winning this one out. And unfortunately for Jarcorrr, he went for a blink first relic, so he didn't have a teleport to get back to lane after dying for that first blood. And since the wave had fallen down, lost out on a good bit of XP. See a 1-level lead already for Nika. NeilMah comes through, but Hog is available for Ronngyu, so not much more to be had there. Neil recognizes that and will leave the buff alone for Zap and Ronngyu to handle. Meanwhile, instead, Neil will go back to the top. I thought maybe he'd actually help Vote, but let's Vote solo out the buff for his own XP.
Yeah, that's something we see from NeilMah pretty consistently, and you're right to do it when Olorun's the guy you're trying to facilitate. He needs as much time, gold, and items as he can get before the fight starts to really have a fighting chance. So NeilMah give it over a little bit of additional golden experience early on. Makes perfect sense to me. Just make sure that Vote has everything he needs.
For losing out on the 1v1 trade out with Nika. Does have some decent sustain into his kit, as all the Camazotz do, between Vampiric Bats and the jump that he can use to get on the minions. Should be fine. Don't imagine he'll go down for a 1v1, especially when he has, or when he hits level 5, I should say. For now, he'll have to sit at that tier 1 tower line. Nika with the teleport, all he needs to do is just get enough gold for that Soul Eater, go back to base, and he can start stacking that item up.
Pretty sure he's got the gold already. After, if you've got Spike Gauntlet, I believe it's like 1,500 to finish off that item, so Nika can head back to base just about whenever he wants. Wants to get that Totem of Coup first, maybe then rotate in towards the wave, or if Jarcorrr sticks around too aggressively, could potentially look for that 1v1. Now that Jarcorrr has stick to 5, you said it, bat out of hell, will keep him resustained pretty easily. Nika's just farming up and biding his time. I think this Raven's like through it. The worst of it is over. You should be able to resustain pretty comfortably in this lane. Decent control over to Nika. Only thing that's going to bail Jarcorrr out from this point is a couple of rotations.
Nika still hasn't gone back to base yet. Now with QvoFred over. Panitom might want to rotate over quick to get that blue, but it's going to be too little too late. An invade successful to the Oni Warriors. And not just that first blood bounty, but a little bit more. Oni Warriors with the 1,400 gold lead up over the Leviathans this early on in the game. It took us almost 10 minutes last time to really see this kind of lead from the Levi's.
Yeah, so the Oni Warriors, much quicker pace this time around, have got a composition that can run with this pace as well. QvoFred forewent the Golden Blade, instead Stone Cutting Sword in that first slot, so a little bit more survivability and a whole lot more damage potential to whoever he locks eyes with. Probably still won't win out on a team fight or a 1v1 with Panitom, who has ticked over to level 6, has got Mannequin Scepter as well, so maybe we see QvoFred play more so just spoiler to Panitom's rotations, and then in the late game he'll have Bumba's Hammer, and then we saw what Osiris can do with Bumba's Hammer. Stick around in a team fight longer than anybody would like you to because of all that HP resustain. Nika has made his way back to base, so later finished up and has begun the stacking process, but also forces Jarcorrr back, and as you said, Blink means you're missing out on a couple of minions inside that tower. And I think Blink is a good indicator of how Jarcorrr had expected this lane to go. If you're getting that, you're probably expecting to get aggressive.
You want to get active early, you want to get those hard-hitting plays right out the gate, but unfortunately he's the one that got hit a little too hard. Nika did shove one full wave under the tower, so Jarcorrr really missing out on that experience, the Totem of Coup pressure, all two of the Oni Warriors. This will be the fourth one now they've been able to pick up to get this game going, and everybody sometimes forgets just how much sneaky gold you really get from that global objective. It really starts stacking up once you have this many of them and even further beyond that.
Yeah, it's 25 per pickup, right? And that's for everybody on your team.
125.
So, yeah, we'll call it 500, right? Wait, no, there's 5 people on your team, not 4.
Well, no, it's 125. He's got it 4 times, so that does hit 500 gold.
Oh my God,
You're right.
My math is
insane.
phenomenal.
You're insane, and well, Dardez gonna have to use his beats to get away from the 3-man gank coming from the Levi's. I'm gonna send Taurus for a little bit of CC immunity to move away from Panitom. Dark Knight's expended as well, so 2 ults for 2. But all that to make sure that Dardez can find a way out.
NeilMah nearly connects with Panitom there, who would have probably just died to that tower. Good evasion. Turtle form buys him a little bit of space. Will it get him his own speed buff? No.
Just walked up and took it.
That is just an unfortunate circumstance in which Panitom finds himself.
And QvoFred will steal away the back Harpy camp, steal away the second one.
He's not going to pick it up.
No, he's going to. He says, that was my speed buff. I want it.
Come on,
and
man.
I'm going to go ahead and grab it for himself. QvoFred refreshing a little bit of timer on that buff for himself. He'll have his up in less than a minute, but being able to steal away this early, Nika under the tier 1 tower. Is he going to start this fight? He's
0%.
going to win at least the boxing match, but no chance he kills with Jarcorrr still having ultimate up.
Still has Blink as well. Jarcorrr forced back to base yet again with the minion waves. Where they are, he should miss out on at least 2 minions worth of experience, perhaps 3 minions worth of gold. Sheento, the target of aggression. Not a whole lot coming his way though. Dardez more so concerned with actually just dealing with the minion wave. This ADC matchup in mid, one that we haven't had too many opportunities to take a look at, but as of now, Dardez getting the better end of it. Transcendence slightly ahead in stacks, experience slightly ahead as well. Scaling into the late game, I think a bit more interesting. We'll see a bit more auto-attack centric build from Sheento, whereas Dardez should likely go down that full ability build. The only difference as of now is the starter item, Death Toll, for Sheento, allowing him to use Branching Bola without having to think too much about his mana sustain. I'm curious to see how the rest of this build starts to shape out. The only one I've really been keeping track of is that wild, like, Rage, second slot, early Executioner into a Deathbringer, very reminiscent of that old build we saw in, like, 2014, 2015.
Sheento went back to base and got a charged bow, second item, so Odysseus bow on the mine, but 3v3 at the blue. NeilMah picks up 2. It's Ronngyu and Panitom, a dunk in with the Mystic Rush, but a 9 turns blessing to find a couple. Nika in the middle of 4 is fine. A dunk by QvoFred just off the mark. Nika is low. Jarcorrr trying to swipe away with the Bat Out of Hell, but not enough damage. But Dardez has plenty of damage to fire back. Sheento, the only really healthy one. Jarcorrr walks back in, gets a heal, and goes down right away. Dardez credited to the kill, and the Oni Warriors on the way out. Sheento dashes in, QvoFred goes right back. With NeilMah standing around, the stone shield from Ronngyu, and the roll out blocked. It's another kill for the Warriors.
Ooh, charge bow almost got QvoFred. Panitom will finish him off. Can Sheento keep up his onslaught? NeilMah was gonna fall down, maybe Rising Jaguar enough damage, but my man got blocked by archers, and now Zapman here. All right, Dardez. I suppose so. beads used.
I think a panic on hitting the ability versus hitting the relic there.
My man was in the shop, and he just slammed his whole keyboard.
He just slapped the entire hand down to see whatever it would take to get him out. So the Oni Warriors don't come out scot-free that time. They do end up losing one, but it's a 2-for-1 trade to the Oni Warriors. 2,400 gold up for the Oni Warriors 9.5 minutes into the game. And all the pressure in the world to fight on this right side. I mean, look at the XP difference just between Nika and Jarcorrr alone. A level and a half separating the two of them. And basically a full item up for Nika.
And Zapman on tour clears out right side mid camps, tries to take down left. Meanwhile, Vote just clears out as much as he can on the opposite side.
Jarcorr's over
Jarcorrr?
there.
Is this a lane swap? Has
happening?
Nika bullied you out of the soul lane? What? Maybe a Gold Fury play?
What is
You've
happening?
got Circle Protection. What are they up to, man?
They're on a tour all their own now. Panitom is now in a lane getting some XP. The Leviathans are
A
doing
Chinese fire drill.
anything that they can to get some XP, to get some farm themselves. Zapman eventually makes it back to his lane. Jarcorrr shuffles all the way across the map to go back to his respective lane. But look who's waiting for him right when he walks back over. Nika, level 11, and with a full Glad Shield on the Raven.
You don't want that wave, Jarcorrr? There's so many minions there.
There's
I guess
a
he wants
lot
the blue.
there. And it's going to be another fight around the blue buff. This one does go to Jarcorrr. But you're right to say,
Is that
a lot
worth?
of wave taken away from Yark.
That was, I believe, 6, maybe 7 minions in the tower, stacked archers, at minimum 4 archers. And Jarcorrr would rather have 3 split his own blue buff. Curious, you're losing out on a whole lot of experience there. Hopefully that CDR and that mana sustain is worth it, because it doesn't seem like it as of right now. Nika's still bullying him in the lane.
Ronngyu finds a push with the rollout. Now it's a 3v3 in the mid lane. Zapman does find a Spirit Ball on Vote off in the distance, but Vote going unchecked this whole game. NeilMah picks up one. It's Panitom, who doesn't have beads, has his ultimate to stay alive. QvoFred has ult, but will not elect to dunk in, at least not on the members of the Leviathans. Trebuchet pushing up left. Vote's able to steal away a purple buff, and the Oni Warriors continue to feast off the lead they started.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like the Oni Warriors are just so proactive on the map. They're doing whatever it is that they want. Right side tier 1, nearly falling down. Trebuchet putting in some good damage here. If QvoFred sticks around, it might just take the tower on its own. Zapman has decided that it is not worth his time to defend. Ronngyu will follow his ADC. That's the first tower, 12 minutes in.
Has a fast tier 1 tower. Zapman just barely makes it back to base, but it's not just Nika with a 2-level lead. QvoFred left a free farm on the left side during that whole right side scuffle. He's picked up a 2-level lead. Gold Fury started up by the Oni Warriors, and this one will go down without any contest. It'll just be a matter of time before it eventually falls. And now we go from this 3,700 gold lead that the Oni Warriors had to a near 5K 12.5 minutes in.
Can I get the net worth charts, Doug? I want to see how much of that, 7,900 for Nika, as opposed to 61, so nearly 2,000.
That's crazy.
Just belonging Nika in that soul lane. That is a good chunk of the lead established already. Pyromancer should be able to help out a fair bit. I think the answer is clear from the Leviathans. Jarcorr's lane is done. We're done playing there. He could get his little Transcendent stacks up whenever he wants from range, because he's not lining up against Nika. If the Levi's want to fight back anytime soon, it's got to be anywhere else.
And Nika's shield from this Raven not going to go down at all, no matter how much Jarcorrr tries. Even with a full hit Vampire Bats, and I don't even know if he's got that maxed out at this point. It doesn't even tickle Nika's bar at this point. He does, and that did nothing. Nika going to delay it yet again, shove another wave in the tower. The wave might actually just kill the tower. That might be the one saving grace Jarcorrr has to get farm, is that now there's not a tower for those minions to fall to.
Yeah, there's nothing to keep Nika in the lane anymore either. Steals away those back camps, can start to make his rotation over towards the left side of the map instead. Meets up with Jarcorrr for the pull.
Tom finds a big ult. NeilMah only finds the camp in that instance. Beads popped by Panitom. Cataclysm finds one, but then the Sanctified Field from Vote will push everybody from the Leviathans out. Even Circle Protection expended during that, and only Ronngyu will benefit from, what was that, like a 50 heal that he got in the midst of all of that? Oni Warriors with a great disengage.
Yeah, they're able to work their way out of there. And that was a sticky situation. Rongyu's initiation there. Very, very good. Cataclysm, I believe, ticking onto 2. The Circle Protection, maybe not the best. Dropping it in the middle of a Sanctified Field. probably going to make it difficult for the rest of the Leviathans to work their way in towards it and find value from that heal. Not much to fight over on the map while we wait for these neutral objectives to respawn. Both side lane tier 1 towers gone. The only place I can imagine we see the Oni Warriors choose to take an engagement over the next couple of minutes could be this blue buff on the right-hand side if you want to group up and try and steal that one away from Jarcorrr. Potentially the tier 1 tower in mid. Otherwise, time to slow it down, farm out, wait for a POI to spawn up.
I'm curious where Sheento's going to go with this build, because we saw the charge bow earlier on. It almost got a kill. Now he's upgraded that one to the Odysseus bow and starting down the light blade tree. I imagine just stack as much attack speed as you can, maybe pick up a silver branch bow and try and chop away at the health bars of what's going to be there. I mean, when you're going this full mitigation build, crits to Nika aren't going to really do a whole lot, so maybe pick up a kin size and see if you can get the benefit there.
Kin size, maybe Executioner as well, having a physical jungler going down that light blade tree. One of the two will likely be Executioner, just giving over some penetration to your teammates, but if it is Kin size, you got no pen. If it is Executioner, I mean, you said it, mitigations, not really gonna do a whole lot there either. Kin size is the selection for Sheento, so line up against QvoFred, line up against NeilMah, maybe you find a little bit more value.
For now, Nika will get to free farm on this right side of the map. He's already won that lane handedly to himself. NeilMah does find a good CCF against Ronngyu. Good spear ball from Zapman. It does connect to Neil, but Neil will be fine inside the jungle. Still aggressive positioning by the Warriors. This Mannequin Scepter out of vote. It's going to allow him to burn through that health bar of the buff just a little bit more. Another spear ball. Neil now getting into dangerous health territories as Circle Protection is dropped. Will not confirm it, and now it's a knock-up. Vote does get stunned out by the Cataclysm, but Zapman actually going to be fine. Spirit Ball a little slow to go through. Another hit on towards Neil. Panitom and Sheento are on the way. NeilMah might not make it out of this. Does not have his ultimate, but does have the double jump. Triple taunt out of Panitom. Spirit Ball from max range, not quite enough. And Panitom gets the heal, but can he get away from QvoFred? The beads come out early from Panitom, and that will be the disengage for the Oni Warriors. Dardez already used his ult before getting to that fight.
Here comes Nika. He's massive, and he's got a couple of easy targets to pick up. Ultimate connects with Stone Shield, buys Panitom a little bit more time.
Jarcorrr finds bad out of hell, but QvoFred still healthy. Nika in the middle of 3 people will eat a Spirit Ball and will be fine with taking that trade out. It's a 1 kill over to the Oni Warriors being able to pick up Panitom, but it took him a while to get that kill.
I wonder what's going through Zapman's mind. I hit 6 Spirit Balls on NeilMah, and he just walked away from me. NeilMah was paying the iron price for that purple buff invade. Luckily, invade successful, and a rotation from Nika does confirm you the engagement. But with the Oni Fury respawning, Nika has got to stick around. 3 seconds left on Panitom's respawn, no blink or beads available. Gotta think this objective is probably just free. I'm not sure the Leviathans have got the positioning, the space, or the safety to walk in.
QvoFred is just escorting this trebuchet towards the mid lane. We saw it take
tower?
the left tower earlier on. Sheento's pretty far back, and it seems that trebuchet can just slowly chip away. Sheento will use the ult to get some extra range on his autos to fire out. And the last fireball puts the tower down to about 20% health. It won't take long for one of these damage dealers to take that one down, and it won't take long for the Oni Warriors to work on this Fury. Nobody from the Leviathans to step up. There'll be an Oni Fury to the Oni Warriors 18 minutes in. That'll push up that gold lead a little bit closer to that 6,000 mark now.
Nika just walking down at Sheento's got QvoFred for the backup. Leviathans 4 strong on the right side of the map. Thought maybe we would see them pull out that Pyromancer, but too long, too little, too late. Gold Fury had fallen so much earlier. You got to think the Oni Warriors would be on the rotation over. And they are. Dardez, QvoFred, turn the corner. NeilMah on the way. Gold Fury immediately into a Pyromancer right afterward. The Oni Warriors had the lead going into it. Even further now in their favor. It's a quick pace to this game. Once Vote is capable of rotating out, that's when the Oni Warriors are going to start looking at the fire.
Already sitting on 3 items at the moment, 2 rings and a Typhon's Fang, so quite a bit of sustain into his damage, plus saying that he has naturally in his kit, and then just those autos going to be doing so much damage once he gets around those objectives, once he gets into these team fights. Nika with his 4th item, Spirit Robe, and it's a full item up over Jarcorrr. That's been the pacing of that solo lane, is such a gold difference between these solo laners. Nika's going to be able to upgrade that sigil very soon.
And he's already got so much mitigation built into his kit. He's already got so much in the build. Oni Hunter, Spirit Rope, both probably going to be procced more often than not, considering how the Leviathans are going to approach these initiations. A knockup from Ronngyu, an ultimate from Ronngyu. Zapman connects a Spirit Ball. Panitom, 9 turns Blessing, all proccing that Spirit Rope, all making Nika nearly unkillable.
Fire Giant, half HP. Ronngyu sees that it's happened. He's got to be the one to make the miracle play, but he can't blink in. Jarcorrr can go into the bat out of hell, but the Oni Warriors will get the Fire Giant, and 3 ults expended by the Leviathans to try and get in there and then go for the disengage. Oni Warriors find themselves a clean objective.
And now could just start up their siege. Wasn't too much expended, just the Sanctified Fields. Leviathan showing a bit of presence towards this tier 2 tower, not willing to let it go down for free. The Oni Warriors, though, they got plenty of time to work with.
QvoFred to the back line. Nika dunks in on top of Sheento, half HP on the Hunter, and the beads are gone. And Nika's health bar was looking nice for a while. Now, not looking so great. NeilMah tanking up the tower, which will go down. And QvoFred standing at the face of 4 to make sure that his teammate can't get away. Oni Warriors, they grab the tower and they back out as quickly as they can. Ronngyu rolls in, but there's no Cataclysm for him to find anybody.
Man, that is just gross. Ravana has just got too much survivability. Not many gods in SMITE can just stare down 4 on the enemy team and then walk themselves out of there. Nika creates a whole lot of space, and the tier 2 tower falls down. Plenty of gold in pocket each for the Oni Warriors to head back, spend up. 2,200 for Nika. He's just trying to tick over to level 20 before he heads back to base so we can upgrade that sigil. This is long shot odds for the Leviathans.
He's got a little bit before he hits 20, sitting at 888 experience. How much does this blue buff exactly give him? I give him almost 200. Wow, blue buff's pretty good at this stage. Well, we are 21 minutes in, so is scaling up a little bit. And he'll elect to hold on. This last wave probably should get him to that
how much
point.
is a wave worth? Yeah, I'm interested.
Blue buff was 200. A full wave.
Closer to 3?
About 3.
Oh, come on, man. 200.
400.
Stick around.
Go get another buff. Oh, wait, there's no
my
buff for him to
God.
get. He's got to go back. He'll buy a full Lonos mask, though. So at least he gets something out of that back. And has about, how much gold does he have in hand after that one? Does he have enough to get the sigil on next back? That's going to take him a while. 300 gold in hand.
Plenty of towers to get that gold from, and Primal Fury spawning very shortly. So I'm sure Nika not too concerned. And if we thought he was survivable already, he is much more so now.
Worse now.
Unequivocally or empirically, 15% more survivable. So, best of luck to anybody trying to shut him down once he gets that sigil upgraded. Even more mitigations to his name. Tier 2 tower falls down. The Oni Warriors rapidly approaching this left side. Phoenix. Leviathan's still kind of scattered.
Spirit Ball just hits the minions, and the Phoenix has no defense. Vote will just melt through the health bar of the bird. Jarcorrr tries to deal some damage to Nika, but the survivable Ravana, with his passive, with his healing and a Soul Eater, will go right back up to full. 1 tower left for the Leviathans to defend. 2 Phoenixes. The Oni Warriors will move to the mid.
So, can they take down this Phoenix with ease? Sheento's been the main damage output, and he's not there. Zoned completely by Nika.
Field from Ronngyu, now stuck inside, picked up by NeilMah and thrown into the clutch of Dardez. Nika in the backline will dunk in, just missed Sheento, but Dardez's Bluestone and Crusher procs end up getting the final blow. The Oni Warriors, in a complete shift from game number 1, have ran at the Leviathans from minute 1, and they may just close this one out. Circle Protection will heal up Jarcorrr. It's 5 versus 3, but the damage from the Oni Warriors is just too much. They will close out game 2 in under 24 minutes.
An overall low kill game. I believe 7 total kills in this one. 6 to the Warriors, 1 to the Leviathans. But it was objectives after objectives after objectives that win them this match. Sure, you could say that early first blood in the solo lane, Jarcorrr never quite recovered. You'd be right to say it. But it really was just the Gold Fury and the Gold Fury Pyromancers. Every single thing that could have been collected on the map that is worth experience or gold, it was, and it was by the Oni Warriors.
And then that strange little fire drill play that came out of Leviathans where Zapman went to the right lane, Jarcorrr went to the left.
I don't know.
Everybody just kind of lane swapped for a moment, decide, okay, well, where can any of us get any kind of farm that isn't Sheento? Because Sheento's going to find whatever he can at that point.
He
but
found it.
it felt kind of like from that moment on, the Leviathans felt a little bit lost when it came to getting their experience out there, getting any kind of gold that they were able to find. And then just whenever it came to the team fights, you've got, what was level 17 Robin diving against 4 and not dying, and then a level 17 QvoFred diving in against 4 and not dying, and a whole lot of not dying the Oni Warriors did. They find game 2, they find the win. That's it from us on the cast. Throw it to the desk to close this out.
My goodness, the Oni Warriors got something figured out here in game number 2, and that's always the threat in moments like this where you get a game 1, I don't even know if you call it a miracle win, but a against the odds style of win in game 1, and that just totally flips the dynamic of the set, and the Oni Warriors looked just unstoppable here in game number 2. And Gorr, that is the style of game the Oni Warriors are able to play sometimes.
I mean, this one just looks better top to bottom, right? We had talked about like team fight potential, things like that. We didn't see a whole lot of those. I mean, we got a couple of big fights, arguably, but not a lot of kills that come to fruition out of them. I mean, even at the end there, they were still, I think, sub 10 total, which is insane for them. But, you watch this one, again, you watch game 1 back and forth. Warriors get a little bit of a lead, then it's a little bit of a fallback. Leviathans get a little bit of a lead, and then they start to fall back, and then all of a sudden the Warriors are rushing one base, the Sheento's rushing the other base, trying to find the kills. And then you get to game number 2, and the Warriors just win. I mean, Mifflin was very succinct about it, but like the pressure that they had all across the board really just leaned into it, right? You get off to a really good start over there in the solo lane. You get really early gold. You start getting objectives. The fights, if they happen, they go your way. I think they only ended up dropping like 1 kill, maybe 2. I didn't see if there was one at the very end, but like they're picking up a lot. And there was a point, I remember like looking up at you when I was at 15 minutes, watching it, kind of, keeping my eyes on it, but then like 15 minutes in, it's like, oh, they were just like up 15K. Like, what's up with this? And even here, you see like 6,000 gold. And it was just this, not even like passive farm, active farm on the map, but just playing a lot cleaner, a lot smoother. They get this Fire Giant, and from that point forward, it was really easy for them to just continue cracking the eggshell that was the Leviathan's defense.
And I actually loved, it was a subtle moment. I love the way that Sanctified Field was used there, almost like a River's Rebuke would be, where it's like a no-play zone, not necessarily to initiate.
Yeah.
But Ronngyu had to roll out into a Cataclysm in the edge of a Sanctified Field, and if the Leviathans wanted to follow up, they had to walk into the Sanctified Field to fight. And I love the way the Oni Warriors ended up playing around that by the end. Sheento, an absurd amount of damage, 22,000, good for 10,000 higher than anyone else. But didn't quite matter, Gorr. A lot of that damage soaked up by the tanks of the Oni Warriors. Ended up being Robin solo, still has its merit, even if the game was a bit faster paced. And so what a way to bounce back for the Oni Warriors. You fall to the Kings the last time we saw this squad. Start off the second half of the second phase with a big win over the Leviathans. And now 2 straight losses for the Leviathans.
Yeah.
Not unlike how their phase started.
The second win that the Warriors have ever gotten against the Leviathans as well. Like they did it at the very beginning of the year, and it was that question. That was when we really started to see the Warriors kind of step up. But this one, I mean, even bigger because, standings-wise, numbers, they were both 4-3 into this. Now you're going up 5-3. They're going 4-4, so you get a step forward there. You're 2-2 in terms of matches because they got 2-0'd earlier this phase. So, it was a very fun matchup to watch, and I'm excited to see what this means for the Warriors going forward.
Agreed. A dynamic team to watch, an exciting team to watch that breeds exciting moments, I suppose. Their solo laner, Nika, a big role in this one, now standing by with me for the post-game interview. Nika, if you could, rewind with me a bit to game number 1, the ending of that game. QvoFred, the last alive. What are comms like in a moment like that, right? I mean, it looks like the game's about to be over. But did you guys have some faith that Qvo could get it done?
Like, before they got to the Phoenix, we were like kind of talking about next game already. But then I think it was like me and like Fred were just like saying, no, we can still hold this, like he might be up. And we were just like, pull him off out of the Eset ult, keep him low, and like he executed it perfectly. And everyone just picked the right targets, and then keep me behind to stop Sheento and pray we end on the other side.
Yeah, I guess, that's just wherewithal for you guys, because if Sheento walks in there, he has the damage to end the game.
Definitely.
Nearly did. And so you guys are able to close that out. Is your read that, this is maybe a bit over the top, do you feel like that the way game 1 ended kind of shifted the mental of the Leviathans? Because game 2 was not all that close. You guys seemingly just had control, or do you think that you just executed your game plan better?
I think our draft was just superior in game 2, and we just like played us super clean. I mean, maybe one bad fight around the blue, but other than that, I think as soon as we get the first blood on solo side, like that just sets up Fred for a really free game, and he can just like move his pressure around the map really easily and yeah, just not really losable unless we make big mistakes.
Sure. And really, this zooms in on particular role swaps here. Osiris, Robin, you end up getting Robin solo, Osiris jungle. What's that dynamic like between those two? Is there ever a conversation about one or the other in solo, or do you feel like Robin always wins out solo?
I think it just depends on like the pressure. So like they have Erlang, like you kind of want to match that right with another like warrior jungle.
Right.
And like the Robin just has like a better lane than the camo. Like you can just
Fair
free
enough.
farm, get a lead, and you know like late game you're just unkillable when
Right.
you hit those power spikes. So
That's right.
yeah, no
Look.
point to keep him out of solo really.
Well, it could look great for you guys. Good way to start the second half of the second phase with a
Yeah.
big win. Congrats, and we'll see you in your next matchup.
Thank you.
Oni Warriors kick off the second half of the second phase score with a win over the Atlantis Leviathans.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, every winner's got to have the loser on the other side. Means the Leviathans now have a couple losses in a row. Not a team immune to little streaks like this. You know, in one week they're beating the undefeated teams. The next week you lose to the Scarabs. The week after that you lose to the Oni Warriors. So have no fear, Leviathans fans. There will be bounce back. They'll get it figured out. But that is only 2 matchups that we've got for this weekend in the SPL. Gore, we've got 5 more matchups. The teams that did not play today, here's the good news. They'll be playing tomorrow. Jade Dragons Valkyries up first. Solar Scarabs versus the Olympus Bolts up after that. And I want to latch onto that second one here, Gore,
Yeah, same.
because of course the Bolts, they are primed to take that next step, right? Lead the league after the end of one of these phases. I mean, they're so close to getting that done. So I look at them. How do they start their second half of the phase? And also the Solar Scarabs. You're coming off of a Game 3 win over the Leviathans. Prove to us, you know, was it a fluke? Was it not a fluke? This team has been improving. They've been going to Game 3s against everyone. Another great opportunity for the Scarabs to grab themselves a win.
I'm excited to see what that one's going to do. You know, again, Scarabs have a lot of potential, and I think that they're a team that I'm going to keep my eye on. Not just the Bolts, but then the next day, the early morning one. I know the Leviathans have always said that the 11 a.m. sets on Sundays aren't necessarily theirs. I guess we'll see if the Scarabs can do it twice because they'll be going up against the Warriors. And so being able to come in, potentially play upset to the number 2 and the number 3 team right now would be massive for them. I also think it's interesting. I mean, you know, the dynamic, the shifting of these standings. I mean, phase 1, Dragons were up at the top with the Bolts, the Warriors. You know, Kings were falling down a little further. Leviathans are starting to gravitate back down towards the spot they ended in phase 1. But we got to see a little bit more upsets. And so this 6 and 8 match tomorrow, you know, Dragons going up against the Valkyries. I'm excited to see what the Valks are going to have to offer just because at this point, we're looking for those improvements, right? Every single week, what set they're going to be bringing, what they're going to be bringing to every game is going to be the question mark. And I think that the Dragons are going to look good. I think the Valks just have to be able to look good with them.
And it's those signs of improvement, if I go back to the Scarabs, that we have seen from them, which is why I want to see it on a more consistent basis now, and I think that team will be able to bring. Now, one thing the Scarabs can't improve is the gear that they're playing on here in studio, because that's just as good as it gets, and it's the Alienware gear that they're playing on. And of course, you can be playing on that at home as well. If you head on over to SMITEGame.com/Alienware and use code SMITE-AW09. AW Smite, I got it wrong. AW Smite09. I had to look down. Every once in a while, you need a crutch. So thanks again to Alienware for being with us this year in the SPL, and AW Smite09 is what you're going to be using at SMITEGame.com/Alienware. Look, I mess it up once, Score, and I got to go back just to make sure I cover my bases. You know what I mean?
I totally wouldn't chuckle.
No, I deserve to be laughed at, but for Alienware's sake, I had to make sure that I got it right
Gotta do
one
them justice.
more time.
They keep doing us justice.
They're doing us justice. We got to do that some justice. That's right, 2 2-0s to start off this week in the SPL. Remember, 1 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. We'll kick back off. 11 a.m. Eastern time, the SEC will be back. So on behalf of myself, Gore Miser, all the other casters, everyone back in production, thanks for watching, and we'll see you